Hey guys, tonight we find ourselves wandering through an ancient orchard, the air thick with the scent of decaying leaves and something strangely sweet and pungent. Imagine the soft, damp earth beneath your worn leather boots, the low sun casting long shadows that dance like mischievous sprites. You reach out, your fingers brushing against a gnarled branch, and pluck a small, brown fruit. It looks a little past its prime, wouldn't you say? If you stumbled across this fruit in the wild, you probably wouldn't survive sampling it, but trust me, there's a reason this little weirdo is worth seeking out. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. I'm always curious to see where our little community stretches across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. That fruit you're holding, my friend, is a medlar. And yes, it does look like it's rotting. That's because, well, it kind of is. But don't let that deter you. This isn't your average, grab it off the tree end of our kind of fruit. The medlar needs a little coaxing. A little softening. A little bledding, as the fancy folks call it. Bledding, you see, is the process of allowing the medlar to soften and partially decay after it's been harvested. It's a carefully controlled rot that transforms the fruit from rock-hard and astringent to a soft, brown pulp with a flavor that's often described as a mix of apple butter, spiced cider, and, well, slightly fermented prunes. It's an acquired taste, to be sure, but one that's been appreciated for centuries. You might be thinking, centuries? Who in their right mind has been eating rotten fruit for centuries? Well, that's a fair question. And the answer takes us back to a time long before refrigerators and supermarkets, when people had to be a bit more resourceful with their food. The medlar, being a late-season fruit that ripens in the late autumn, provided a source of sweetness and sustenance when other fruits were long gone. Think of it as the ancient world's fruitcake, surprisingly enduring. The history of the medlar stretches back further than you might imagine. We're talking ancient Rome, where it was cultivated and enjoyed by the elite. In fact, Pliny the Elder, the Roman naturalist, wrote about the medlar, describing its unique characteristics and medicinal properties. He probably didn't go so far as to say it would cure baldness, but you never know with those ancient remedies. They believed the medlar could cure everything from a toothache to a plague. Interestingly, the medlar was also a popular fruit in the Middle Ages, finding its way into many a medieval garden and orchard. It was even mentioned in literature. Shakespeare, for example, made a rather racy reference to the medlar in Romeo and Juliet, likening it to certain parts of the human anatomy. I won't get into the specifics here, but let's just say it involves some innuendo and a clever play on words. You can look that one up on your own time. And speaking of anatomical allusions, the medlar has earned itself some rather colorful nicknames over the years. In some parts of England, it was known as the open-arse fruit. Charming, isn't it? Historians still argue whether this name referred to the open, eye-like shape of the fruit's blossom end, or if it was just a general observation about its appearance after bledding. I'll let you be the judge. Now, let's talk about that bledding process. You can't just pick a medlar off the tree and expect it to taste good. Oh no. You have to be patient. You need to lay the fruit out on a bed of straw or in a cool, dry place, and let nature take its course. Over a few weeks, the fruit will soften, the skin will turn a deep brown, and the flesh will transform into a mushy, marmalade-like consistency. It might look and smell a little questionable. Don't worry. That's perfectly normal. Once the medlar is properly bled, you can finally enjoy it. The pulp can be eaten straight from the skin, or it can be used to make jams, jellies, and chutneys. It's also a surprisingly versatile ingredient in savory dishes. Medlar paste can be added to sauces for meat or game, providing a subtle sweetness and depth of flavor. And while we're on the subject of flavor, let's be honest, the medlar is not for everyone. It's not your typical sweet and juicy fruit. It has a unique, complex flavor that can be both appealing and slightly off-putting. Some people describe it as tasting like spiced applesauce with a hint of caramel. Others say it tastes like rotten apples with a dash of vinegar. It really depends on your palate. Personally, I think it's an acquired taste, but one that's worth acquiring. Especially if you like weird and wonderful things. One quirky tidbit about the medlar is its association with folklore and superstition. In some cultures, the medlar was believed to have magical properties. It was said to ward off evil spirits, protect against disease, and even bring good luck. Some people would hang medlar branches over their doorways or keep the fruit in their pockets as a form of protection. Whether or not this actually worked is anyone's guess, but it certainly adds to the medlar's mystique. Now, you might be wondering, where can I find these strange and wonderful medlars? Well, that's a good question. Medlars aren't exactly a common sight in your local supermarket. You're more likely to find them at specialty farms, orchards, or even in the wild, if you know where to look. They are somewhat rare to see, and the fruit tends to ripen and fall quickly, so it might be a waste of time to go out looking for them. But hey, you never know. You might stumble across a hidden medlar tree in some forgotten corner of the world. Speaking of forgotten corners, the medlar has seen a bit of a resurgence in recent years. Chefs and food enthusiasts are rediscovering its unique flavor and versatility. It's popping up on menus in fancy restaurants and in artisanal food products. People are starting to appreciate the medlar for what it is, a unique and flavorful fruit with a long and fascinating history. Maybe the next time you see one you should try it. After all, you survived listening to me for this long, and you might just find that you actually enjoy the taste. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Okay, settle in, grab a comfy blanket, maybe a warm cup of chamomile tea, because we're about to dive deep into the surprisingly dramatic world of the quince. Yes, that quince. That hard, knobbly fruit that looks like a grumpy pear. You trudge through an orchard in late autumn. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The branches of the trees, mostly bare now, reach skyward like skeletal fingers. But there, clinging stubbornly to a few branches, are the quinces. A dull, golden yellow, almost defiant against the gray landscape. You pick one. It's firm, almost rock-hard, and slightly fuzzy. It certainly doesn't scream delicious, does it? But don't let its rough exterior fool you. This fruit, my friend, has a story to tell. A story that stretches back millennia, intertwining with mythology, history, and some surprisingly delicious recipes. Imagine, for a moment, that you are a guest at the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, a celebrated mythological union. All the gods and goddesses are there, decked out in their finest togas and sipping ambrosia. But, oh dear, Eris, the goddess of discord, wasn't invited. Classic party foul, right? Naturally, she's not best pleased. So, in a spectacular display of passive-aggressive behavior, she throws a golden apple, inscribed, "To the fairest," into the crowd. This, of course, sets off a chain reaction of squabbling among Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, ultimately leading to the infamous judgment of Paris and, well, the Trojan War. Drama, drama, drama. And guess what? That golden apple. Many scholars believe it wasn't actually an apple at all. It was a quince. You see, quinces were highly prized in ancient Greece, often associated with love, fertility, and marriage. They were considered sacred to Aphrodite herself. So, the apple of discord might have been a quince of discord. It doesn't quite roll off the tongue in the same way, does it? The quince of discord sounds more like a low-budget horror movie. You examine the quince in your hand. It's still stubbornly hard. You wouldn't want to bite into it raw, trust me on that. The taste is incredibly astringent, almost mouth-puckeringly sour. It's like a lemon had a really bad day and decided to punish your taste buds. But that's the magic of the quince. With a little bit of heat and sugar, it transforms. Historians still argue whether the quince actually originated in the Caucasus region or perhaps Persia, but regardless, it spread throughout the Mediterranean and beyond, becoming a staple in many cuisines. The Romans, known for their love of elaborate feasts and garum, a fermented fish sauce that I sincerely hope you never have to smell, used quinces in everything from jams and preserves to cooked dishes with meat. They even believed that quinces possessed medicinal properties, using them to treat everything from dysentery to bad breath. Although, I suspect a good toothbrush would have been more effective for the latter. Now, fast forward a few centuries, and you find yourself in a medieval kitchen. Imagine the smells, wood smoke, roasting meat, and the sweet fragrance of spices. You are a cook in a grand castle, tasked with preparing a feast for the Lord and his guests. And on the menu? Quince cheese, known as cotignac in French. This dense, fruity confection was a delicacy, often served at the end of a meal. It was so prized that it was often presented in decorative boxes, almost like edible jewels. And here's a quirky tidbit, some medieval cookbooks actually recommended using quinces to perfume clothing. Apparently, the sweet scent was thought to ward off bad smells and even prevent illness. Can you imagine? Instead of spraying yourself with perfume, you just rub a quince all over your tunic. I'm not sure how well that would work today, but hey, at least you'd have a snack on hand. You close your eyes for a moment, trying to imagine the taste of that medieval quince cheese. It must have been incredibly rich and flavorful, a welcome treat in a world where sugar was a luxury. You can almost feel the sticky sweetness on your fingers, the satisfying chewiness of the confection. Opening your eyes, you're back in the modern day, quince still in hand. It's time to get cooking. Don't worry, you don't have to rub it on your clothes. We're going for something a little more palatable. Think of membrillo, the Spanish quince paste that's often served with manchego cheese. The sweetness of the quince perfectly complements the salty, nutty flavor of the cheese. It's a flavor combination that's both sophisticated and comforting. Or perhaps you're in the mood for quince jelly, glistening ruby red in a jar, ready to be spread on toast or served with roasted meats. But let's get even more adventurous. How about a Moroccan tagine with lamb and quince? The sweet tart flavor of the quince adds a wonderful complexity to the dish, balancing the richness of the lamb and the warmth of the spices. Or maybe a quince and apple crumble, the perfect autumnal dessert. The possibilities are endless. Historians still argue about the precise origins of marmalade, but some believe that it actually derives its name from the Portuguese word for quince, marmelo. The Portuguese were known for making quince preserves, and these preserves may have been the inspiration for the citrus-based marmalade we know and love today. So, the next time you spread marmalade on your toast, remember the humble quince. It may be the unsung hero of your breakfast. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this all sounds lovely, but how do I actually cook with a quince? Well, the first step is patience. Quinces require a long cooking time to soften and develop their flavor. You can't just throw them in a salad and expect them to be delicious. Trust me, I've tried. It's not a good idea. The most common method is to peel, core, and quarter the quinces, then simmer them in water or sugar syrup until they are tender and have turned a beautiful pinkish red color. This can take anywhere from 1 to 2 hours, depending on the size and ripeness of the quinces. And while they're simmering away, your kitchen will fill with an incredible aroma, a combination of sweet fruit and warm spices. It's basically autumn in a pot. Here's a fringe tidbit for you: in some cultures, quince seeds are used to make a hair gel. Yes, you read that right. Apparently, the seeds contain a mucilaginous substance that can be extracted and used to create a natural hair styling product. I'm not sure how well it works, and I certainly wouldn't recommend trying it without doing some serious research first, but hey, who knows? Maybe quince seeds are the secret to perfect hair. You imagine yourself experimenting in the kitchen. The quinces are simmering gently on the stove, their fragrance filling the air. You add a cinnamon stick, a few cloves, and a sliver of lemon peel. The syrup bubbles and thickens, coating the quinces in a glistening glaze. You taste it. It's perfect. Sweet, tart, and subtly spiced. You can't wait to try it with a sharp cheddar cheese or maybe even incorporate it into a savory dish. You lift the pot from the stove. The aroma is intense. If you're in a cold environment, the steam may fog up your glasses. But more importantly, you have taken an otherwise astringent fruit and crafted something complex and delicious. But before you get too carried away with your quince-related culinary adventures, a word of caution. Quinces can be a bit temperamental. They tend to oxidize quickly, which means they will turn brown as soon as they are cut. To prevent this, you can soak them in water with a little lemon juice while you are preparing them. And one more thing, quince seeds contain small amounts of cyanide compounds, so it's best to avoid eating them raw. Don't worry, you're not going to die if you accidentally swallow a few seeds. But it's always better to be safe than sorry. Think of it as the quince's final act of defiance. Even after you've tamed its sourness and transformed it into something delicious, it still has a few tricks up its sleeve. Historians still debate the extent to which the quince has been overshadowed by other fruits, like the apple and the pear. While the apple has become a symbol of temptation and knowledge, and the pear has been celebrated for its delicate flavor and texture, the quince has remained somewhat obscure, lurking in the shadows. But perhaps that's part of its appeal. It's a fruit that rewards patience and effort. It's a fruit with a story to tell. And now, it's your turn to write your own quince story. To experiment, to create, to discover the magic of this often overlooked fruit. So, go forth, brave adventurer, and conquer the quince. Just maybe skip the hair gel. Oh, and one more thing, if you're thinking of starting a quince-themed cult, please, for the love of all that is holy, don't invite the goddess Eris. We've had enough discord for one lifetime. Okay, let's get cozy. Settle in, maybe grab a cup of herbal tea, chamomile, perhaps. We're about to wander into the world of the serviceberry. It's a world filled with juicy little berries, fascinating history, and, well, me. Narrating. To you. You trudge through a field, the late spring sun warming your face. Birds chirp a cheerful, if somewhat generic, tune. You notice a small tree, its branches laden with clusters of dark purple fruit. These, my friend, are serviceberries. Or Juneberries. Or Saskatoon berries. Or shadbush berries. Honestly, they have more aliases than a jewel thief. But whatever you call them, they're delicious. You reach out and pluck a berry, popping it into your mouth. Sweet, slightly almond-y, and with just a hint of wildness. It's a taste that whispers of sunshine and open fields. A taste that indigenous peoples have savored for centuries. For thousands of years, these berries were a staple food source for numerous Native American tribes across North America. They were eaten fresh, dried for winter storage, and pounded into pemmican, a concentrated mixture of dried meat, fat, and berries that could sustain you through the harshest conditions. Think of it as the original energy bar. Only, without the artificial flavors and questionable ingredients. It's the kind of ingredient that would give you superpowers in a video game, a stat buff for resistance to Oregon Trail. You continue walking, the gentle breeze rustling through the leaves. You imagine yourself as a member of the Plains tribes, harvesting these berries for your family. This isn't just a snack, it's sustenance, survival. You feel a sudden pang of respect for the land and its bounty. Though, admittedly, you're mostly just thinking about how good pemmican must taste. We're all driven by something, and for me, it's almost always hunger. Now, you might be wondering, where did this rather quaint name, Serviceberry, come from? Well, there are a few theories, all equally charming. The most common explanation is that the tree bloomed around the same time that the ground thawed enough to allow for burials after winter. Hence, that the service referred to funeral services. A bit morbid, perhaps, but undeniably practical. A sign of spring, a sign of life, and death, all wrapped up in one beautiful, blossoming tree. Alternatively, Some believe the name derives from the fact that the blooming of the serviceberry coincided with the return of traveling preachers to rural communities, signaling that church services would resume. Others yet claim it heralded the end of winter, service to the cold, hungry residents. I personally like to think it's because the berries were so delicious, they were a service to your taste buds. But hey, I'm biased. Historians still argue whether the service refers to burial services, church services, the service to farmers ending a long winter, or even the Old English meaning of sarvis, referring to small wild fruits. The jury is still out, so feel free to pick your favorite explanation. I won't judge. Unless you pick that berries are a service to your taste buds, one. Then, I'll just think you're incredibly smart. And slightly hungry. You pause by a small creek, the water gurgling over smooth stones. The sunlight dances on the surface, creating shimmering patterns. You notice a small, brightly colored bird flitting through the branches of the serviceberry tree, happily pecking at the berries. You feel a sense of peace, a connection to the natural world. You resist the urge to start singing Disney princess songs, because, let's be honest, that would ruin the moment. But it's not just humans who adore the serviceberry. Birds, bears, deer, and other wildlife all rely on these berries as a vital food source. It's a crucial part of the ecosystem, supporting a diverse range of species. So, when you're enjoying your serviceberry pie, more on that later, remember that you're also contributing to the well-being of the local wildlife. You're basically a furry, feathered animal activist, armed with a fork and a slice of pie. Now, here's a quirky tidbit for you. In some cultures, the serviceberry is believed to have medicinal properties. The bark and leaves were traditionally used to make teas and poultices to treat various ailments, from digestive issues to skin irritations. Some even believed it could cure the common cold. I'm not saying you should ditch your doctor and start chewing on serviceberry bark, but hey, it's worth a Google search, right? Just don't blame me if you end up with a stomach ache. That said, I've heard that the berries themselves are full of antioxidants. So maybe eating a pie will make you live forever, who knows? You continue along the path, your mind buzzing with newfound serviceberry knowledge. You start to wonder about the plant itself, how it grows, and what makes it so special. The serviceberry is a deciduous tree or shrub, belonging to the rose family. It's incredibly adaptable, thriving in a wide range of environments, from forests to prairies. It prefers well-drained soil and plenty of sunlight, but it's generally a pretty resilient plant. You know, the kind that can survive even your, hypothetical, attempts at gardening. The tree itself is quite beautiful, with delicate white flowers in the spring that give way to those delicious berries in the summer. The leaves turn a vibrant shade of red and orange in the fall, providing a stunning display of autumn colors. It's like a year-round show, constantly changing and evolving. Consider it nature's own reality TV. Now, let's talk about those berries again. They're not technically berries, by the way. They're actually pomes, like apples and pears. But let's not get bogged down in botanical technicalities. Just call them berries. Everyone else does. And besides, pome pie just doesn't have the same ring to it. You stumble upon a historical fact that's more on the fringe side. Apparently, serviceberries were sometimes used as a natural dye. The berries could be crushed and used to create a reddish-purple hue, perfect for coloring fabrics or even hair. Imagine rocking a serviceberry red dye job. It would be a bold statement, for sure. Though, I wouldn't recommend trying it without doing some serious research first. You might end up looking like a smurf who got into a fight with a berry bush. You imagine yourself as an early American settler, using serviceberry dye to color your homespun clothes. It's a far cry from the synthetic dyes of today, but it's a reminder of the ingenuity and resourcefulness of our ancestors. And, let's be honest, it's a lot more eco-friendly than some of the stuff we use now. Plus, you'd smell faintly of delicious berries. Which is never a bad thing. Unless you're trying to avoid attracting bears. But the use of serviceberries wasn't limited to just food and dye. Indigenous peoples also used the wood for various purposes, including making tools, weapons, and even musical instruments. The wood is strong and flexible, making it ideal for crafting bows and arrows. Imagine the music you could make with a Serviceberry flute. It would be like the soundtrack to a fairy tale. Okay, that may be a bit of a stretch. But still, it's a cool thought. You approach an open scholarly debate, a proverbial crossroads in the forest of knowledge. It revolves around the cultivation of serviceberries. Some historians argue that indigenous peoples actively cultivated serviceberry trees, using techniques like controlled burns and selective pruning to encourage berry production. Others believe that they simply harvested the berries from wild trees, without actively managing the populations. Historians still argue whether serviceberries were actively cultivated, merely harvested, or even used in some forgotten spiritual ritual by various tribes. You suddenly see a movie scene of natives painting themselves in berry juice, dancing around a fire, chanting for the earth to be bountiful. It's the type of moment that is lost to the ages, perhaps forever. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. Different tribes had different practices, depending on their specific needs and resources. Some may have actively cultivated the trees, while others relied on wild harvesting. It's a complex issue, with no easy answers. But that's what makes history so fascinating, right? The endless possibilities, the unanswered questions, the chance to piece together the past like a giant, fragmented puzzle. And all this thinking is making you tired. As the sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the field, you find yourself at the edge of a small town. You see a sign that reads, "Welcome to Pie Town, USA." Well, isn't that convenient? You walk down Main Street, the aroma of freshly baked pies filling the air. You spot a small bakery, its windows filled with tempting treats. And there it is, a serviceberry pie, its crust golden brown and its filling a deep, inviting purple. You can practically taste it already. This is the way the world is supposed to be. Now, I'm not saying you have to eat a serviceberry pie. But let's be honest, you've come this far. You've learned about the history of the serviceberry, its importance to indigenous peoples, its ecological role, and its various uses. You deserve a reward. And what better reward than a slice of delicious pie? You step inside the bakery, the warm air enveloping you in a comforting hug. The baker smiles at you, his face dusted with flour. "Can I help you?" he asks. "I'll take a slice of serviceberry pie," you say, your mouth already watering. He cuts you a generous slice, places it on a plate, and hands it to you with a wink. "Enjoy," he says. You find a table by the window and take a bite of the pie. The sweet, slightly tart filling explodes in your mouth, mingling with the buttery, flaky crust. It's pure bliss. This is what it all comes down to, isn't it? The simple pleasures in life. A walk in nature, a fascinating history lesson, and a slice of really good pie. You savor each bite, feeling grateful for the bounty of the earth and the ingenuity of humankind. You think about the indigenous peoples who first discovered the deliciousness of the serviceberry, the early settlers who used it to dye their clothes, and the generations of bakers who have perfected the art of pie making. And as you finish the last bite of your pie, you realize that you've not just eaten a dessert. You've experienced a connection to the past, a celebration of the present, and a taste of the wild. All in one delicious slice. Okay, settle in, friend. Let's talk mulberries. You find yourself strolling through an orchard, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the rows of trees. The air is thick with the sweet, almost jam-like scent of ripe berries. You reach out, pluck a plump, dark purple fruit from a low-hanging branch, and pop it into your mouth. That burst of sweetness, that slight tartness, that, my friend, is the taste of history. Think about it. Mulberries have been around for millennia. You're tasting something that emperors, peasants, and even silkworms have enjoyed for generations. Yes, silkworms. We'll get to them. You might notice the juice stains your fingers a vibrant purple, a mark of the mulberry. It's a stubborn stain, almost a declaration of berry ownership. This, you see, is part of the mulberry's charm. It's not afraid to leave its mark, literally. You continue walking, crunching fallen leaves underfoot. The trees are a mix of shapes and sizes. Some are gnarled and ancient, their branches heavy with years, while others are young and vibrant, reaching for the sky. You pause by one of the older trees, its bark deeply furrowed, almost like the wrinkles on a wise old face. You can almost hear it whispering stories of bygone eras. Stories of silk, of royalty, and of course, those delicious berries. You wonder about the hands that have harvested from this very tree, the mouths that have savored its fruit. It's a connection to the past, right there in your hand. Now, let's get to those silkworms. You probably already know that silkworms munch exclusively on mulberry leaves. They are picky eaters, these little guys. They're like the toddlers of the insect world, only willing to eat one specific thing, and throwing a tantrum, or, not producing silk, if they don't get it. It's a symbiotic relationship that has shaped economies and cultures for centuries. Without the mulberry, there would be no silk. Imagine a world without silk scarves, silk dresses, silk ties. It's a less luxurious world, isn't it? Legend has it that silk production was discovered in China around 2700 BC by the Empress Leizu, wife of the Yellow Emperor. She supposedly noticed silkworms munching on mulberry leaves and then spinning their cocoons. Intrigued, she collected the cocoons and, well, the rest is silken history. Of course, historians still argue whether this is a factual account or just a charming myth, but the legend certainly adds a bit of mystique to the story of silk. It's a lovely origin story, even if it might be more fairy tale than fact. For centuries, China held a monopoly on silk production, carefully guarding the secrets of sericulture, that's fancy speak for silk farming. The penalty for revealing the secrets? Death. Yikes. Talk about keeping a trade secret. You wonder if they had non-disclosure agreements back then, written in blood, perhaps. You imagine the poor soul who accidentally let slip the secret of silk, suddenly realizing they'd made a grave error. Eventually, the secret got out. According to one slightly ridiculous, but admittedly entertaining story, a Chinese princess smuggled silkworm eggs and mulberry seeds out of China hidden in her headdress when she married a foreign prince. Talk about commitment to couture. It's like something out of a spy movie, only with more insects and fewer explosions. You almost wish you could see that headdress. Imagine the look on the customs officer's face. Silk production spread throughout Asia, then to Europe, and eventually to the Americas. Mulberry trees became essential crops, cultivated specifically for feeding silkworms. You can almost picture entire landscapes transformed by these trees, stretching as far as the eye can see, all dedicated to the production of this luxurious fabric. But mulberry trees aren't just about silk. They're also about those delicious berries we talked about earlier. You reach for another one, savoring the taste. It's a taste that has graced royal tables for centuries. In fact, the mulberry tree was considered a symbol of wisdom and prosperity in some cultures, often planted in royal gardens. King James I of England, for instance, was a huge fan of silk. So much so, that he tried to establish a silk industry in England in the early 17th century. He even ordered the planting of mulberry trees throughout the country. There was just one tiny little problem. He planted the wrong kind of mulberry tree. He planted black mulberries, Morus nigra, which produce delicious berries, but aren't the preferred food of silkworms. Silkworms prefer white mulberry leaves. Morus alba is their favorite. It was an expensive mistake, one that historians still chuckle about. You can almost hear King James I grumbling, "Blast those berries. I wanted silk, not jam." You see, the mulberry tree is full of surprises. It's a tree that has played a significant role in history, both in the production of silk and as a source of delicious food. You walk a bit farther and stop by a table where there is jam and juice made of mulberry, and you taste them. The jam is very sweet and dense, while the juice is refreshing and diluted. You taste the sun and the earth. Beyond the historical importance and the delightful taste, the mulberry also has some surprising medicinal properties. In traditional Chinese medicine, mulberry leaves, bark, and fruit have been used to treat a variety of ailments, from high blood pressure to diabetes. There's even some evidence suggesting that mulberry extracts may have anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. It's almost like the mulberry tree is a one-stop shop for health and happiness. Of course, it's always wise to approach traditional remedies with a healthy dose of skepticism. But the fact that the mulberry has been used medicinally for centuries suggests that there might be something to it. You wouldn't want to replace your doctor with a mulberry bush just yet, but it's an interesting thought, isn't it? Now, let's delve into a slightly more, shall we say, unconventional aspect of mulberry lore. You know how some people believe that certain plants have magical properties? Well, the mulberry is no exception. In some folklore traditions, the mulberry tree is associated with protection and warding off evil spirits. Some people even believe that planting a mulberry tree near your home can bring good luck and ward off misfortune. You might be thinking, really? A tree can protect me from evil spirits? Hey, I'm not saying it's true, but it's a fun thought, isn't it? And if it makes you feel better to have a mulberry tree in your backyard, then who am I to judge? Besides, even if it doesn't ward off evil spirits, at least you'll have some delicious berries to snack on. There is an old wives' tale of keeping away plague by planting mulberries. You suddenly wonder whether the pandemic could have been avoided if everyone planted mulberries. Maybe. You know what else is interesting about mulberries? They come in different colors. You probably think of mulberries as being dark purple, but they can also be white, red, or even pink. The color depends on the variety of the tree and the ripeness of the fruit. It's like a whole spectrum of mulberry goodness. You find a few trees that are ripe but not purple. They are indeed white, and the taste is just a bit less intense than the purple ones. And here's a fun fact, the white mulberry, Morus alba *, is actually native to China, while the red mulberry, Morus rubra *, is native to North America. It's funny how plants can travel across continents and become naturalized in new environments. You find yourself wondering how many other plants have similar stories to tell. So, you've learned about the mulberry's role in silk production, its association with royalty, its medicinal properties, and even its supposed magical powers. You've also learned that King James I wasn't the best silk farmer, and that princesses sometimes smuggle silkworm eggs in their headdresses. It's been quite the journey, hasn't it? As you stroll back out of the orchard, the sun setting on the horizon, casting long shadows across the fields, you can't help but feel a sense of connection to the past. You've tasted the fruit that emperors and silkworms have enjoyed for centuries. You've learned about the tree that has played a vital role in shaping economies and cultures. You understand now that the mulberry is more than just a tree. It's a symbol of history, of culture, and of the enduring power of nature. And you know what? You're suddenly craving a silk scarf. Alright, settle in. Let's talk plums. But not just any plum. We're diving deep, like Mariana Trench deep, into the delightfully tart, intensely flavorful world of the Damson Plum. Yes, that Damson Plum. The one your great-aunt Mildred probably used to make jam that could pucker your lips for a week. You might remember it. So, you find yourself standing in an orchard, late summer sun warming your face. The air is thick with the sweet-sour scent of ripe fruit, buzzing with bees drunkenly flitting from tree to tree. You reach up, your fingers brushing against the dusty, dark purple skin of a damson plum. You gently twist. It comes away easily, a slight bloom of powdery wax coating your fingertips. You hold it up to the light, admiring its deep, almost black hue. It looks innocent enough, doesn't it? Don't be fooled. This little guy packs a punch. You pop it in your mouth. Immediately, your face contorts. That initial sweetness is quickly overtaken by a puckering tartness that makes your eyes water just a little bit. You chew thoughtfully, though. There's more to it than just sourness. There's a rich, complex flavor, hints of almond and spice, underlying that initial zing. This isn't your average, grocery store plum. This is something special. And you'd be right. The Damson plum, Prunus domestica subsp. Insatitia, is an ancient fruit. Its origins are a bit murky, as is the case with so many good things, but it's generally believed to have originated in the area around Damascus, Syria, hence the name, a corruption of Damascene plum. I know, it sounds way more British than Middle Eastern, right? History is weird. It's been cultivated for centuries, prized for its unique flavor and versatility. Interestingly, you might think that Damascus is in fact one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, with evidence of settlement dating back 11,000 years. Imagine all the damson plums that could have been grown and eaten in that time. Historians still argue whether certain older fruit varieties still exist in the same form, though. Now, you may be wondering, what's the big deal? It's just a plum, right? Well, yes, but also no. You see, unlike those bland, mass-produced plums you find stacked high in the supermarket, the damson plum has a character. It has personality. It's a plum with attitude. It's the plum equivalent of that quirky aunt who always wears mismatched socks and tells inappropriate jokes at family gatherings. You might roll your eyes, but secretly, she's your favorite. You continue walking through the orchard. You notice the trees themselves are different. They're smaller, more compact than other plum trees, with a dense, almost thorny habit. They look tough, resilient. And they are. Damson plums are known for their hardiness. They can withstand colder temperatures and poorer soils than many other plum varieties. They're the little engine that could have the plum world. It's said that the Romans, those notorious gourmands and conquerors, were instrumental in spreading the damson plum throughout Europe. They recognized its value not only as a food source but also for its medicinal properties. Plums were believed to aid digestion, which, let's be honest, after a Roman feast, you probably needed all the help you could get. Now, here's a slightly less mainstream historical fact for you. In some rural parts of England, damson plums were once used as a form of currency. I kid you not. You could literally pay for your groceries with a basket of plums. Imagine going to the grocery store and handing the cashier a bag of fruit. That'll be 3 damsons and a half, please. It's far more interesting than those reward cards. But beyond the culinary uses, and the slightly bizarre historical anecdotes, the damson plum holds a deeper significance. It represents a connection to the past, a link to a time when food was more seasonal, more local, and more real. It's a reminder that some things are worth preserving, even if they're not the easiest or the most convenient. So, what can you do with these little powerhouses of flavor? Well, the possibilities are pretty endless. Of course, there's jam. Damson plum jam is legendary. It's dark, rich, and intensely flavorful. It's the kind of jam that makes you want to curl up by the fire with a warm scone and a good book. It's also a great gift, if you're feeling generous. They also can be used in pies and crumbles. Their tartness balances beautifully with the sweetness of the pastry and the other fruits. They can be used in savory dishes as well. They pair wonderfully with pork, game, and even cheese. Imagine a slow-cooked pork shoulder with a damson plum glaze. Divine. Or a sharp cheddar cheese with a dollop of damson plum chutney. Chef's kiss. Speaking of chutney, you might be tramping about the kitchen in your socks, trying your hand at just such a dish. You've got the plums simmering away with vinegar, sugar, and spices, and the aroma filling your kitchen is nothing short of intoxicating. You stir the pot, watching as the plums break down and the chutney thickens. It's a slow, meditative process. And you begin to wonder, who first figured out that this bitter little fruit could be transformed into such a delight? It's questions like this that keep historians up at night. Did some ancient cook accidentally drop a damson plum into a pot of vinegar and sugar? Probably not, but it's fun to imagine. Was it a process of trial and error, passed down through generations? Historians still argue whether early varieties were as sour as modern cultivars. You know, there's something deeply satisfying about preserving fruit. It's like capturing a little piece of summer and holding onto it for the cold, dark days of winter. It's a way of defying the seasons, of holding on to the light. Plus, it's incredibly rewarding to open a jar of your own homemade jam or chutney on a cold winter morning. Now, back to the orchard. The sun is starting to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the rows of trees. The air is getting cooler, and the bees have finally gone to bed. You've gathered a basket full of damson plums, enough to make a batch of jam, a pie, and maybe even a bottle of plum brandy, if you're feeling ambitious, and have a still. Disclaimer: check your local laws regarding distilling spirits. We don't want you getting into any trouble. You might notice that some damson plums are clingstone, meaning the flesh clings tightly to the pit, while others are freestone. It's a bit of a gamble each time. Clingstone varieties are a bit more work to process, but many people believe they have a richer, more intense flavor. It's like the universe is testing your patience. Or maybe it's just messing with you. You're heading back towards the gate now, your basket heavy with fruit. You glance back at the trees, their dark silhouettes stark against the twilight sky. You feel a sense of gratitude, a connection to the land, to the seasons, to the people who have cultivated these trees for generations. Did you know that in some cultures, plums are associated with good luck and prosperity? In Japan, plum blossoms are a symbol of spring and renewal. In China, plums are often given as gifts to symbolize longevity. So, by eating a damson plum, you're not just enjoying a delicious fruit. You're also potentially inviting good fortune into your life. Hey, it's worth a shot, right? And speaking of good fortune, here's a little joke for you. What do you call a plum that plays the trumpet? A plum et. I'll see myself out. The versatility of the damson plum isn't limited to just food and drink. Historically, the tree's wood was used for small, ornamental objects due to its fine grain and beautiful color. Even the leaves have been used medicinally in some traditional remedies. You arrive back at the farmhouse, the lights glowing warmly in the windows. You set down your basket of plums, feeling a sense of accomplishment. You've connected with the past, you've learned something new, and you've got a basket full of delicious fruit to show for it. Now, I bet you are thinking about that brandy. It's a long process, requiring patience and skill. But the result is a potent, flavorful spirit that captures the essence of the damson plum in a bottle. It's the kind of drink that's perfect for sipping on a cold winter evening, while you think about those plums in a lovely plum tree. It's the kind of drink that would impress your friends, or at least mildly intimidate them. You may find yourself in a debate about whether damson plums are truly a distinct species or simply a subspecies of the common plum. It's a question that botanists have been pondering for years. Some argue that their unique characteristics warrant separate classification, while others maintain that they are simply a variation within the Prunus domestica family. It's the plant world's version of the great tomato fruit versus vegetable debate. But whatever their botanical classification, one thing is certain: the damson plum is a unique and valuable fruit that deserves to be celebrated. So, the next time you see a damson plum, don't hesitate. Grab it, taste it, and experience the tart, complex flavor that has captivated people for centuries. You might just find yourself falling in love with this quirky, little plum. Okay, settle in. Let's talk crab apples. You trudge through the orchard, autumn air crisp against your cheeks, the scent of decaying leaves and fermenting fruit filling your nostrils. You think, oh, look, a pretty little tree, all decked out in ruby jewels. But friend, that's not just some ornamental flourish for the Instagram crowd. That, my dears, is the crab apple, and it's so much more than just a pretty face. In fact, it's got a rather tart personality. You reach out, almost hesitantly, and pluck a tiny, crimson orb from its branch. Go on, I dare you. Bite into it. I'll wait. See. Told you. That puckered expression. Yeah, that's the crab apple's signature move. It's a face punch of sourness, a symphony of tannins dancing on your tongue. But don't let that initial shock deter you. There's a complex history and a surprisingly delicious purpose lurking beneath that puckery exterior. For centuries, the crab apple has been the unsung hero of the cider world. You might be sipping your artisanal, small-batch cider thinking of plump, juicy-eating apples, but chances are, somewhere in that blend, a crab apple is lending its backbone. Think of it like this: eating apples are the lead singer, all flash and popularity. Crab apples. They're the session musicians, the ones with the real skill, providing depth, structure, and complexity that the showy lead singer just can't deliver on their own. They're the reason that cider doesn't just taste sweet. Crab apples are powerhouses of tannins, acids, and sugars, the holy trinity of good cider. The tannins provide bitterness and astringency, that drying sensation on your tongue. The acids contribute sharpness and balance the sweetness. And the sugars, well, they fuel the fermentation process, turning that juice into the bubbly, alcoholic nectar we all know and, hopefully, love, responsibly, of course. You wouldn't want to upset the cider gods. Back in the day, before the advent of sophisticated apple breeding programs, wild crab apples were the primary source of cider apples. In fact, some historians still argue whether the cultivation of cider apples spurred the development of orchards as a whole, with crab apples leading the way. Imagine, a whole industry built on these tiny, sour fruits. It's like building a skyscraper on a foundation of lemon drops. Okay, maybe a slightly less offensive analogy is needed. And here's a quirky tidbit for you: in some Old English traditions, crab apples were used in a ritual called wassailing, where villagers would sing and toast to the apple trees in the hope of a bountiful harvest. Think of it as apple tree karaoke, but with more cider. Imagine the scene: drunken villagers, stumbling around in the dark, belting out off-key tunes to a bunch of trees. Good times. Excellent vibes. Probably sounded terrible, but hey, it worked for a while. Now, I know what you're thinking. But you said they were edible. You told me to bite one. You fiend. And yes, I did. And yes, you can eat them. But, and this is a big but, you probably don't want to eat them straight off the tree unless you enjoy that whole puckering your entire face experience. That's a feeling that really lasts, by the way. Like a bad sunburn or a terrible song stuck in your head. You can avoid those things in life. Crab apples are best when cooked, transforming from tiny, tart terrors into something surprisingly delicious. Think crab apple jelly, a shimmering, ruby-red condiment that adds a sweet tart punch to toast, cheese, or even roasted meats. Or crab apple butter, a smooth, spiced spread that evokes the warmth of autumn. Or, if you're feeling adventurous, you could even try pickling them. Pickled crab apples are a unique and tangy addition to any cheese board. You know, the culinary uses of crab apples are actually enjoying something of a resurgence. Chefs and home cooks alike are rediscovering their potential, experimenting with different ways to tame their tartness and highlight their complex flavors. It's like the culinary world is finally saying, "Hey, crab apple, we appreciate you. We see your potential. We forgive you for that face-punching sourness." And beyond the culinary realm, crab apples have a surprisingly important role to play in the ecosystem. Their blossoms provide early-season nectar for pollinators, and their fruits provide food for birds and other wildlife throughout the winter. So, not only are they good for cider, and good for your culinary adventures, they're also good for the birds and the bees. Literally. I'm pretty sure that's a song. They're also remarkably resilient. Crab apples can thrive in a variety of conditions, tolerating poor soil, drought, and even pollution. They're the ultimate survivors, the punk rockers of the fruit world. I guess that's pretty badass, huh? And here's another quirky tidbit for you: some cultures believe that crab apples possess magical properties. In Celtic mythology, they were associated with the otherworld, a realm of spirits and magic. They were often used in divination rituals, and their branches were believed to ward off evil spirits. It's a little hard to imagine something so small and sour being able to ward off evil, but hey, who am I to judge? Maybe evil spirits just don't like puckered faces. But before you go running off to plant a crab-apple orchard in your backyard, there are a few things you should know. First, there are many different varieties of crab-apple, each with its own unique characteristics. Some are more ornamental, with showier blossoms or more vibrantly colored fruits. Others are better suited for cider making or culinary use. Do your research, and choose the right variety for your needs. Don't just grab the first one you see and hope for the best. Trust me on this. Second, crab apples can be prone to certain diseases and pests. So, be sure to provide them with proper care, including regular pruning and pest control. Unless you're looking to start a whole new ecosystem of crab-apple blight. In that case, have at it. But perhaps the most important thing to remember about crab apples is that they're a reminder that beauty can be found in unexpected places. They're a reminder that even the smallest, most unassuming things can have a profound impact on our lives. They're like those quiet heroes in life, who stay out of the spotlight but are still doing awesome, important things. So, the next time you see a crab-apple tree, take a moment to appreciate its beauty, its history, and its surprising edibility. And maybe, just maybe, take a bite. Just be prepared for that face punch of sourness. You've been warned. Historically, apples, including crab apples, were brought to North America by European colonists. This is a widely accepted fact, though the extent to which indigenous populations used native crab apples before European contact is a subject that historians continue to explore. There's a fascinating discussion about cultural appropriation there, too. What does it mean to take a wild ingredient, claim it, and cultivate it? Heavy stuff. You know, it's funny. We often overlook the things that are right in front of us, the things that are small and unassuming. But sometimes, those are the very things that hold the most value. Like, I don't know, the air you breathe. Pretty important, right? And free. Or the love of your dog. That is absolutely priceless and is totally worthy of a really, really embarrassing, high-pitched baby voice. Just me. Okay. Historians still argue whether certain regional variations of crab apples are truly distinct species or merely variations of existing ones. This debate highlights the complexity of classifying plants and the ongoing process of understanding the natural world. It also highlights how incredibly tedious the day-to-day life of a botanist must be. Are these two different enough? Let me look through my magnifying glass for another 3 hours. So, as you wander through the orchard, your pockets bulging with tiny, tart crab apples, or maybe just one or two, if you're easily deterred, remember that you're carrying a little piece of history, a little piece of culinary potential, and a little piece of ecological importance. You're also carrying a potential source of intense facial contortion. But hey, nobody's perfect. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go make some crab apple jelly. And maybe write a song about drunken villagers singing to apple trees. Because, let's be honest, that's a story that needs to be told. Oh, and one last thing. Please remember that foraging for crab apples should be done responsibly and ethically. Only harvest from areas where it is permitted, and be sure to leave plenty of fruit for wildlife. Respect the environment, and don't be a jerk. The end. Alright, settle in, buttercups. Let's talk about something, well, let's just call it interesting. Think autumn, think crisp air, think maybe a slightly judgmental grandmother offering you a homemade pie, which, let's be honest, you're totally going to eat, no matter how suspicious it looks. We're diving headfirst into the world of the rowan berry. So, you're hiking, right? The leaves are doing that whole fiery, Instagram-worthy thing. You're probably wearing a flannel, because reasons. And you spot it, a flash of brilliant red against the green and gold. A rowan tree, laden with its signature berries. Little clusters of vibrant jewels, practically screaming, hey, look at me. I'm packed with folklore. You might not think much of it at first glance. Just another berry. But trust me, this little guy has a resume. It's been around the block a few times, more like, around several centuries. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, relaxed YouTube host, what's the big deal? It's a berry. Well, my friend, it's so much more. It's a symbol. A protector. Well, sometimes a laxative, but we'll get to that later. Imagine ancient peoples, huddling around a fire, telling stories. The rowan, also known as mountain ash, features heavily in those stories. You see, they believed it possessed potent protective properties. They'd plant it near their homes to ward off evil spirits, witches, and generally unpleasant neighbors. Consider it nature's bouncer. They'd even carve its wood into amulets. Think of it as the original wearable security system. It's a lot less bulky than one of those ankle monitors, anyway. You might be wondering, why rowan? What makes it so special? Some believe its bright red color symbolized life force and vitality, a defiant splash against the encroaching darkness of winter. Others pointed to the small, star-shaped mark at the blossom end of the berry. When you cut it in half, of course, please don't just start hacking away at berries you find in the wild. This star, they said, represented protection and guidance. Fun fact, the Celts held the rowan in particularly high esteem, considering it one of their sacred trees. They associated it with the goddess Brigid, a powerful figure linked to fire, poetry, and healing. You're trekking deeper now. The air is getting cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. You notice a gnarled old rowan clinging to the side of a rocky outcrop. It looks like it's been there forever, silently witnessing the passage of time. And it probably has. This brings us to traditional medicine. The rowan wasn't just about warding off supernatural nasties. It was also used, cautiously, for more physical ailments. The berries are rich in vitamin C, which, back in the day, was a pretty big deal, especially during long winters when scurvy was a legitimate threat. However, and this is a big however, raw rowan berries contain parasorbic acid. This can cause some unpleasantness. Think nausea, vomiting, and general digestive distress. So, before you go munching on a handful of them like some kind of woodland creature, remember, cooking is your friend. Rowan berry jelly, jam, and even wine were common ways to make the berries palatable and safe. The heat breaks down the parasorbic acid, leaving you with a tart, slightly bitter, but ultimately delicious treat. Speaking of delicious, it's worth noting that in some cultures, rowan berries were used to flavor alcoholic beverages. They added a unique, almost medicinal, edge to the drink. It was kind of like a natural, well, you know those flavored vodkas that taste vaguely like cough syrup? It was like that, but with significantly more historical significance. Plus, probably less artificial coloring. Now, here's where things get a little weird. In some isolated communities, rowan was used as a folk remedy for everything from eye infections to warts. Yes, warts. The logic behind this isn't exactly clear. Maybe it was the power of suggestion. Maybe it was the belief that the rowan could draw out the evil causing the wart. Or maybe someone just really wanted to believe in the magic of the rowan. Okay, another history bomb. During the Middle Ages, the rowan was often planted in churchyards to protect the dead from restless spirits. Think of it as spiritual security for the departed. It's also important to mention that the specific beliefs and practices surrounding the rowan varied wildly depending on the region and the specific cultural context. What was considered sacred in one area might have been viewed with suspicion in another. You're now approaching the summit. The wind is picking up, whipping through the bare branches of the trees. You can see for miles. And, lo and behold, another rowan, standing proudly against the elements. Now, let's get to the quirky stuff. You might find this hard to believe, but some sources say that farmers used to use rowan sticks to drive their cattle to pasture, believing it would protect them from harm along the way. Imagine herding a bunch of cows with a magic stick. I'm picturing a scene straight out of a Monty Python sketch, honestly. And here's a fringe tidbit for you. Some esoteric traditions link the rowan to the realm of fairies. They believed that rowan trees acted as gateways to the otherworld, places where you might stumble upon elves, sprites, or possibly just a really grumpy badger. So, next time you're near a rowan, keep an eye out. You never know what, or who, you might encounter. Maybe bring a little snack offering, just in case. A miniature cheese and cracker plate for the fairies, perhaps. Moving on. We're deep in the scholarly debate now, people. Historians still argue whether the rowan's protective qualities stem from genuine belief in its power or were simply a way for people to feel safer in a world filled with uncertainty and danger. Was it magic, or was it psychological comfort? Or maybe, just maybe, it was a little bit of both. Human beings are complex creatures, and our relationship with the natural world is even more so. You're starting your descent now. The sun is beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape. The air is filled with the promise of night. It's also important to note that, despite its association with protection, the rowan wasn't universally revered. In some areas, it was viewed with suspicion, linked to witchcraft and other nefarious activities. After all, anything that's powerful can be used for good or evil, right? Here's your final joke. Why did the rowan tree break up with the oak tree? Because it said he was too stout. And the fact we have all been waiting for. The rowan berry is often associated with divination and second sight. Some people believe that by carrying a piece of rowan wood, they could enhance their psychic abilities and gain insights into the future. Whether or not that's true, well, that's for you to decide. But hey, it couldn't hurt to try, right? Just don't come crying to me if you suddenly start seeing the winning lottery numbers and then accidentally bet on the wrong ones. Now, you're back at the trailhead. The hike is done. But hopefully, you've gained a newfound appreciation for the humble rowan berry. It's a reminder that even the smallest things can hold incredible stories and a surprising amount of folklore. And also a reminder to never eat raw rowan berries, unless you really enjoy spending time in the bathroom. So, next time you see a rowan tree, take a moment to admire its beauty and remember its rich history. And maybe, just maybe, thank it for warding off any evil spirits that might be lurking nearby. You never know. And that, my friends, is the story of the rowan berry. A tale of protection, tradition, and, well, potential digestive upset. Pleasant dreams. Alright, settle in, settle in. Let's talk about something wonderfully prickly, a little bit tart, and absolutely bursting with goodness, sea buckthorn. You might have seen it listed as an ingredient in your fancy skincare serums, or maybe you've stumbled across a brightly colored jam in a Scandinavian market. But trust me, this little orange berry is so much more than just a pretty face, and it's definitely earned its place as a nutritional powerhouse. Imagine this, you're strolling along a blustery coastline, the wind whipping through your hair, the salty air stinging your cheeks. Okay, maybe you're not actually there, maybe you're curled up on your couch in your pajamas. Either way, picture it. Ahead of you, clinging stubbornly to the sandy dunes, are these rugged shrubs, their branches laden with vibrant orange berries. Those, my friend, are sea buckthorn. They look like they're defying the elements, and honestly, they kind of are. You reach out, tentatively, to pluck one. Be careful. They are indeed prickly. You pop it in your mouth. Whoa! Prepare for a flavor explosion. It's tart, it's slightly acidic, maybe a little bit funky. It's not your average sweet berry experience, but trust me, that unique flavor is part of its charm. And more importantly, it's a signal of all the amazing things going on inside that tiny package. So, what exactly makes sea buckthorn so special? Well, for starters, it's absolutely crammed with vitamin C. We're talking levels that rival, and often exceed, citrus fruits like oranges. Think about that next time you're reaching for that glass of orange juice in the morning. You could be having sea buckthorn. It has way more vitamin C. Just picture starting your day with a burst of tart sunshine. But the goodness doesn't stop there. Sea buckthorn is also rich in vitamins A, E, and K, as well as various B vitamins. It's a good source of antioxidants, those little cellular bodyguards that help protect you from the ravages of free radicals and oxidative stress. Think of them as tiny knights in shining armor, battling the bad guys in your system. In addition to this, it has omega-3, 6, 7, and 9 fatty acids all rolled into one berry. And it's not just the berries themselves that are beneficial. The oil extracted from the seeds and pulp is also incredibly valuable. It's rich in palmitoleic acid, also known as omega-7, which is relatively rare in the plant kingdom. This omega is renowned for its potential skin healing and moisturizing properties. That's why you often find it in high-end skincare products. You slather it on your face and, voila! You feel and look like you've rolled around in a spa for a week. Probably. I'm not sure, though, if rolling around in a spa is truly relaxing. All that water sounds so wet. Historically, sea buckthorn has been used for centuries across various cultures. It's believed to have originated in the Himalayan region, before gradually spreading across Asia and Europe. There's evidence that the ancient Greeks used sea buckthorn to promote weight gain and improve the coat of their horses. Hence the Latin name Hippophae rhamnoides, which literally translates to shiny horse. Can you imagine? The original equine beauty treatment. Move over, mane and tail det angler, there's a new sheriff in town, sea buckthorn. Now, here's a quirky little tidbit for you. Legend has it that Genghis Khan and his armies relied on sea buckthorn to maintain their strength and stamina during their conquests. They believed it helped them recover from battles and stay healthy on long campaigns. Talk about a superfood. Forget protein bars and energy drinks, Genghis Khan was all about that sea buckthorn. You have to admit, it does sound like a much more natural approach to maintaining peak physical condition. And it's not just ancient warriors who were fans. In more recent times, during the Soviet era, sea buckthorn was extensively studied for its medicinal properties and even used by cosmonauts to help them cope with the harsh conditions of space travel. Apparently, it helps with radiation exposure, among other things. So, if you're ever planning a trip to Mars, make sure you pack your sea buckthorn capsules. You know, just in case. The cultivation of sea buckthorn is also interesting. It's a nitrogen-fixing plant, which means it can convert atmospheric nitrogen into a form that plants can use. This makes it a valuable asset for improving soil fertility and preventing erosion. It's basically nature's little helper, working tirelessly to keep our ecosystems healthy. It is a little ironic, isn't it? This tiny plant, clinging to precarious coastlines, is actually playing a vital role in protecting the land itself. And speaking of coastlines, that's where you'll find most sea buckthorn thriving. It's incredibly hardy and can tolerate harsh conditions, including salty air, strong winds, and poor soil. It's a real survivor, a testament to the power of nature. It's the plant equivalent of that friend who always manages to bounce back from anything life throws their way. I am definitely not that plant equivalent. If you throw something at me, I'll probably just cry. But back to its nutritional benefits. We talked about the vitamins and antioxidants, but sea buckthorn is also a good source of essential fatty acids. These fats are important for maintaining healthy skin, hair, and nails, as well as supporting brain function and reducing inflammation. They're like the building blocks of a healthy body. And sea buckthorn has them all. It's a one-stop shop for all things fatty acid related. Okay, maybe not all things. I wouldn't recommend using it as a replacement for butter on your toast. You might be wondering, okay, this all sounds great, but how do I actually use sea buckthorn? Well, there are plenty of ways to incorporate it into your diet and skincare routine. As I mentioned earlier, you can find sea buckthorn oil in serums, creams, and lotions. You can also find it in the form of juice, jams, and supplements. Some people even use it to make tea. Just be aware that it does have a strong flavor, so you might want to start with small amounts and gradually increase your intake as you get used to it. Or, you could just embrace the tartness and go all in. I mean, life's too short to be afraid of a little bit of zing, right? However, getting back to its tartness, some people might find its potent flavor a bit off-putting on its own. So you might try mixing it with other fruits, like apples or berries, to create a more balanced flavor profile. You can also use it as a glaze for meats or vegetables. It adds a unique and tangy twist to savory dishes. Think of it as the culinary equivalent of that unexpected plot twist in a movie that leaves you pleasantly surprised. Beyond all the vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, sea buckthorn is also known for its potential medicinal properties. It has been used traditionally to treat a variety of ailments, including skin conditions, digestive issues, and respiratory problems. Some studies suggest that it may also have anti-inflammatory and immune-boosting effects. But, of course, more research is needed to confirm these potential benefits. Don't go throwing out all your medicine and relying solely on sea buckthorn just yet. That would be unwise. Historians still argue whether sea buckthorn was truly as vital to ancient armies as legends suggest. Some claim it's an exaggeration, a romanticized story passed down through generations. Others maintain that its unique nutritional profile made it a valuable asset for warriors facing demanding physical conditions. It's one of those historical debates that will likely continue to rage on for years to come. Much like the debate over whether pineapple belongs on pizza. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Now, for another quirky fact, in some cultures, sea buckthorn is considered a symbol of good luck and prosperity. It's often planted near homes to ward off evil spirits and attract positive energy. So, if you're feeling superstitious, maybe consider planting a sea buckthorn bush in your garden. It couldn't hurt, right? And even if it doesn't actually ward off evil spirits, at least you'll have a steady supply of delicious and nutritious berries. And here's a light joke for you: what do you call a sea buckthorn that's always telling jokes? A very berry comedian. I'll see myself out. But seriously, the more you learn about sea buckthorn, the more impressive it becomes. It's a plant that has adapted to thrive in challenging environments, providing a wealth of nutritional and medicinal benefits along the way. It's a reminder that some of the most powerful things in nature come in small, unassuming packages. The plant's resilience and adaptability also extend to its cultivation. Sea buckthorn can be grown in a wide range of climates and soil types, making it a valuable crop for farmers in various regions. It also has the potential to be a sustainable and environmentally friendly crop, as it requires minimal inputs and can help improve soil health. And while it is super resilient, it does require both male and female plants to successfully pollinate and produce berries. And now, a little aside on ethical sourcing. If you're planning on buying sea buckthorn products, it's important to choose brands that prioritize sustainable and ethical sourcing practices. Look for products that are certified organic or made with wild harvested berries. This helps ensure that you're not contributing to the overexploitation of this valuable resource. After all, we want to make sure that future generations can also enjoy the benefits of sea buckthorn. So, there you have it. A crash course in all things sea buckthorn. From its tart flavor and impressive nutritional profile to its fascinating history and potential medicinal properties, this little orange berry is truly a force to be reckoned with. So, the next time you're looking for a way to boost your health and well-being, consider adding sea buckthorn to your diet or skincare routine. You might just be surprised by what this prickly little powerhouse can do. And lastly, here's a joke for the road: why did the sea buckthorn go to therapy? Because it had too many prickly issues to deal with. Okay, now I'm done. Alright, hey there, dreamers. Welcome back. Settle in, maybe fluff that pillow a little, because tonight we're diving deep into the lore, the legends, and the downright deliciousness of the elderberry. Yeah, that's right, that humble little berry packs a punch. Think of me as your guide, whispering you through fields of folklore and fragrant syrups. So, ready? Let's get started. You find yourself standing at the edge of a sun-dappled field. The air is thick with the late summer scent of wildflowers and something else. Something sweet, slightly musky, and undeniably elder. The elder bushes themselves are heavy with clusters of tiny, dark purple berries. They look almost mischievous, don't they? Like they know secrets they're just itching to share. Go on, reach out. Run your fingers gently over the delicate umbels of berries. Feel the slight give as you pluck a few. Don't eat them raw though. Trust me on this one. Unless you're particularly fond of nausea, you're going to want to cook these little guys. That said, even touching them evokes something primal. Now, close your eyes for a second. Imagine yourself transported back centuries. You're not just in some random field anymore. You're standing in the heart of medieval Europe. Elder trees were practically revered. They were believed to ward off evil spirits, protect homes from lightning strikes, and even grant wishes. Imagine the property value boost. You know, charming cottage, newly renovated, protected by ancient elder tree. You can almost hear the chants of village healers as they brewed potent concoctions from the bark, the leaves, the flowers, and, of course, the berries. Every part of the elder tree was thought to hold medicinal properties. Want to get rid of a cough? Elderberry syrup. Need to soothe a burn? Elderflower poultice. Feeling a little bit off? Well, there's probably an elderberry-based remedy for that too. Historians still argue whether the elder's purported powers were based on genuine pharmacological effects or simply the placebo effect amplified by centuries of belief. But you have to admit, the sheer ubiquity of elderberry in traditional medicine suggests there's something more to it than just wishful thinking. Take a deep breath. Let the scent of the elderberries fill your lungs. Let the weight of history settle upon you. You're not just experiencing a plant, you're experiencing a cultural touchstone. Open your eyes now. Notice that gnarled old tree over there, the one with the slightly twisted branches. That's an elder mother tree. In some traditions, especially in parts of Scandinavia, the elder tree was considered a living embodiment of a powerful spirit, a guardian of the home and hearth. People would often ask permission before cutting any part of the tree, and they would never, ever burn elder wood in the fireplace. That was just bad luck. Super bad luck. Like, your cows stop giving milk bad luck. But the folklore doesn't stop there. In Danish folklore, the Hildemor, or elder mother, was said to inhabit the elder tree. You absolutely had to ask her permission before taking any wood or berries. Not asking. That's like knocking on death's door and asking for a cup of sugar. And speaking of taking, let's talk about taking medicine. It's believed that the elderberry's medicinal properties can be traced back to ancient civilizations. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, even referred to the elder tree as his medicine chest. That's quite the endorsement, even if it does conjure up images of a very cluttered, very fragrant apothecary cabinet. The flowers, those delicate, creamy blossoms, are packed with antioxidants and are believed to have anti-inflammatory properties. The berries themselves, when cooked, are a rich source of vitamins A and C, and are thought to boost the immune system. But here's a quirky bit: while most elderberry varieties are safe to consume when cooked, the unripe berries and other parts of the plant contain compounds that can cause cyanide poisoning. Yeah, you read that right. Cyanide. So, you know, maybe don't go chomping down on raw elderberries like they're nature's candy. It's a good reminder that even the most beneficial plants can have a dark side. They're just as complex as we are, really. Now, let's fast forward a few centuries. You find yourself in a Victorian-era kitchen. The air is thick with the aroma of simmering fruit and spices. A woman, clad in a pristine apron, is carefully stirring a bubbling pot. She's making elderberry cordial. The Victorians were obsessed with elderberry cordial. It was a staple in many households, not only for its purported health benefits but also for its delicious taste. It was the natural equivalent of popping a multivitamin. And let's be honest, it probably tasted a whole lot better than those chalky things. Elderberry cordial wasn't just a drink, it was a social lubricant. It was offered to guests, served at parties, and even given as gifts. It was a symbol of hospitality and good health. Think of it as the Victorian equivalent of a really good bottle of wine. Except, non-alcoholic. Mostly. Making elderberry cordial is a simple process, really. You simmer the berries with water, sugar, and a few spices, perhaps a cinnamon stick, a few cloves, or a slice of lemon. Once the mixture has thickened, you strain it, bottle it, and store it in a cool, dark place. And then, you dilute it with water or sparkling water and enjoy. But here's where things get interesting. Some historical recipes for elderberry cordial included a splash of something a little stronger. A little brandy, perhaps, or a dash of gin. Just to enhance the flavor, of course. And, to help ward off those pesky evil spirits. Because why not? You can't spell cordial without alcohol. Well, actually, you can, but let's pretend you can't. But historians still argue whether these alcoholic additions were purely for flavor or if they were intended to act as a preservative. Alcohol does have antiseptic properties, so it could have helped to prevent the cordial from spoiling. Or, maybe it was just a way to make the medicine go down a little easier. Who's to say? You take a sip of the imaginary cordial. It's tart, sweet, and slightly spicy. It warms you from the inside out. You can almost feel your immune system doing a little happy dance. Okay, maybe that's just the placebo effect kicking in. But you know what? You don't care. It tastes good. And now, you find yourself in a modern kitchen. Stainless steel appliances gleam under bright fluorescent lights. You're surrounded by gadgets and gizmos that would have been unimaginable to those Victorian cordial makers. But the spirit of the elderberry remains the same. You're making your own elderberry cordial. Maybe you're following a traditional recipe, passed down through generations. Or maybe you're experimenting with new flavors, adding a touch of ginger, a sprig of rosemary, or even a pinch of chili. Go wild, you mad scientist of deliciousness. Elderberry has seen a resurgence in popularity in recent years. Thanks to a growing interest in natural remedies and homemade foods, people are rediscovering the magic of this humble berry. You can find elderberry syrup in health food stores, elderberry jam in farmers markets, and even elderberry-infused cocktails in trendy bars. It's everywhere. And why not? It's a delicious, versatile, and potentially beneficial ingredient. It's a taste of history, a touch of folklore, and a whole lot of goodness. But remember, just like a good reality show, you need to be careful and watch out for any bad actors. But there's one fringe theory that suggests the elderberry's benefits extend beyond the physical. Some believe that elderberry can enhance psychic abilities, promote spiritual growth, and even connect you to the other world. Now, I'm not saying I believe in all of that. But I'm also not saying it. So, as you stand there in your modern kitchen, stirring your bubbling pot of elderberry goodness, remember all those who came before you. Remember the medieval healers, the Victorian cordial makers, and the ancient shamans who revered the elder tree. You are part of a long and rich tradition. You are a steward of the earth's bounty. And you are about to make a damn fine batch of elderberry cordial. Now, go forth and create. Experiment. Enjoy. And don't be afraid to add a little splash of something stronger. Just for flavor, of course. Alright, settle in, settle in. Let's talk sloes. Yes, sloes. Those tiny, tart little berries that you've probably never given a second thought to, unless, of course, you're a gin aficionado. And if you are, well, you already know why we're here. Because, my friend, the sloe is the unsung hero, the secret weapon, let's just say, the key ingredient in sloe gin. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Gin. Sloe gin. Isn't that what your great-aunt Mildred sips from a delicate crystal glass while simultaneously judging your life choices? Well, maybe. But let's not underestimate the sloe. It's so much more than just a geriatric tipple. It's a flavor bomb waiting to explode, delicately, of course. We don't want any aggressive flavor explosions here. Just gentle, harmonious tartness. Imagine yourself now, it's autumn, you trudge through a hedgerow, the crisp air bites at your cheeks, and you're on the hunt. Not for gold, not for glory, but for these tiny, dark orbs clinging stubbornly to thorny branches. You carefully pluck them, your fingers turning a faint shade of purple. The sloe berry. It looks deceptively like a blueberry, doesn't it? But trust me, pop one of those little suckers in your mouth and you'll immediately understand the difference. It's a puckering experience. A face-contorting, eye-watering, oh my goodness, what have I done, kind of experience. Seriously, don't do it. Fresh sloes are not for the faint of heart. That intense tartness, that almost tannic quality, is exactly what makes it perfect for gin. See, gin, at its heart, is basically flavored vodka. Usually juniper berries dominate the flavor profile, that's why it tastes like a Christmas tree threw up in your mouth, but it's the other botanicals, the herbs and spices, that really give each gin its unique character. And that's where the sloe comes in. You take your gin, a decent one, mind you, no need to slum it, and you drown a whole bunch of these pricked sloes in it. Yes, prick them. Otherwise, the gin won't penetrate them properly. Think of it like giving them a tiny little spa treatment, a relaxing massage to release all their flavorful goodness. Okay, maybe that's pushing it. Prick them with a fork. Now, I say, drown, because you're really using a lot of sloes. And then you wait. Months, even. The gin slowly extracts the flavor and the color from the sloes, turning a beautiful ruby red. The longer you wait, the smoother and more complex the flavor becomes. Think of it like wine, but with more juniper. The origins of sloe gin are a bit murky, shrouded in the mists of time and, well, probably gin fumes. But most accounts agree that it probably started sometime in the 17th or 18th century in England. See, landowners at that time were required to maintain hedgerows, which were essentially living fences, to contain livestock and mark property boundaries. Sloe bushes were a common component of these hedgerows. So, what do you do with all those sloes? Well, you can't really eat them straight. And gin was becoming increasingly popular. So, someone, somewhere, had the bright idea to combine the two. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe it was a stroke of genius. But whatever it was, sloe gin was born. There's a popular myth, and I use the word myth loosely, that the reddish color of sloe gin was initially used to disguise the fact that the gin being used was, shall we say, of questionable quality. In other words, it was a way to hide the impurities and make it look more appealing. Of course, this is just a rumor, but a rather juicy one, isn't it? Now, while the English are generally credited with the invention of sloe gin, similar fruit-infused spirits were being made all over Europe. Think of the Passion of Spain, which is made with anise liqueur and sloe-like berries. Or various fruit brandies infused with wild plums and other tart fruits. So, while sloe gin might be particularly British, the idea of infusing alcohol with wild, foraged berries was definitely a pan-European phenomenon. This is also likely how we ended up with plum sake in Japan, though no sloes are involved there. Speaking of foraged berries, the entire process of foraging for sloes has a certain romantic appeal, doesn't it? Imagine yourself, the sun setting, your basket overflowing with dark purple berries, the wind whispering through the branches. It's idyllic. Of course, the reality is probably more like being scratched by thorns, covered in mud, and having to fight off hordes of wasps. But hey, a little hardship makes the reward all the sweeter, right? Plus, you get to look like you survived an ordeal when you serve the finished gin. And the timing of the harvest is crucial. You're not just looking for sloes, you're looking for ripe sloes. Traditionally, It's said that you should only pick sloes after the first frost. The frost helps to break down the skin of the berry, making it easier for the gin to extract the flavor. But, let's be honest, waiting for the first frost can be a gamble. Especially if you live somewhere with mild winters, which, let's be honest, is everywhere these days. So, a little hack, you can freeze the sloes yourself. Just pop them in the freezer overnight, and you'll achieve the same effect. Genius, right? You're welcome. But here's a question that often pops up amongst sloe gin enthusiasts: to prick or not to prick? Some argue that pricking the sloes is essential, that it allows the gin to penetrate the fruit more effectively and extract more flavor. Others argue that it's unnecessary, that the gin will eventually penetrate the skin anyway, given enough time. Some people even go as far as saying that the pricking process can actually damage the berries, leading to a less flavorful gin. The debate rages on. Me? I'm a pricker. But hey, you do you. And then there's the sugar question. Sloe gin can be quite tart, so most recipes call for adding sugar to sweeten it up. But how much sugar? That's entirely a matter of personal preference. Some people like their sloe gin sweet and syrupy, almost like a liqueur. Others prefer it drier and more tart, allowing the flavor of the sloes to really shine through. The best approach is to start with a small amount of sugar, taste as you go, and adjust to your liking. You can even use different types of sugar: brown sugar for a richer, more caramel-like flavor, or honey for a more floral note. The possibilities are endless. Or, at least, they're limited by the types of sugar you have in your pantry. The base gin you use also makes a world of difference. You can use a classic London dry gin, with its strong juniper notes, or a more floral and citrusy gin, like a new Western style. Each gin will impart its own unique character to the finished product. Some people even use a higher proof gin, thinking that it will extract more flavor from the sloes. This is something that historians still argue about, as the increased extraction may lead to an overly bitter product. Experiment. That's half the fun. Once your sloe gin is finally ready, strained, and bottled, what do you do with it? Well, obviously, you drink it. But how? Traditionally, sloe gin is served neat, in a small glass, as an after-dinner digestive. It's also delicious mixed with champagne or prosecco for a festive cocktail. Or you can add it to a gin and tonic for a fruity twist. You can even use it in cooking. A splash of sloe gin can add a unique depth of flavor to sauces, marinades, and desserts. Sloe gin has seen its share of ups and downs over the years. It was hugely popular in Victorian England, then fell out of favor for a while, deemed, perhaps unfairly, as a bit old-fashioned. But in recent years, it's experienced a resurgence in popularity, thanks to the rise of craft distilleries and the renewed interest in foraging and homemade spirits. People are rediscovering the unique flavor and the simple pleasure of making their own sloe gin. And let's be honest, there's something deeply satisfying about making your own sloe gin. It's a connection to nature, to tradition, to the slow, deliberate rhythms of the seasons. It's a project that requires patience, a little bit of effort, and a whole lot of love. And the end result is a delicious, unique spirit that you can be truly proud of. Plus, you can brag to your friends about how you foraged all the sloes yourself, even if you actually bought them from a farm shop. There was a brief period where sloe gin was almost exclusively associated with railway refreshment rooms, adding a touch of rustic charm to your delayed commutes. So, the next time you're strolling through the countryside, keep an eye out for those thorny bushes laden with tiny, dark berries. Don't underestimate the power of the sloe. It may be small, it may be tart, but it's also a key ingredient in a truly delicious and historically significant spirit. So, go forth, forage, and create your own sloe gin masterpiece. And remember, drink responsibly. And maybe offer some to Great Aunt Mildred. She might surprise you. Okay, settle in, settle in. Let's talk plums. But not just any plum. We're going deep, deep into the underbrush for this one. We're talking bullace. You trudge along a forgotten country lane, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The sun, a watery disk behind a veil of grey clouds, casts long, skeletal shadows from the hedgerows. You're on the hunt, a forager with a mission, scanning the tangled branches for a telltale sign, the dull, almost dusky sheen of bullace plums. It's October, the season is ripe, and the bullaces, stubbornly clinging to their thorny branches, are just begging to be made into something, well, something other than bird food. Though, let's be honest, the birds probably appreciate them more than your first attempt at bullace jam. These little guys, see, they aren't your average, supermarket sweet plums. They're wild. Untamed. Bordering on downright sour, especially if you get them before they're truly ready. Imagine sucking on a lemon that's been brooding over a bad breakup. Yeah, that's close. But that's also their charm. That bracing tartness. That almost feral flavor. It's a taste of the wild, a reminder that not everything in life has to be artificially sweetened and perfectly polished. Kind of like your Aunt Mildred's fruitcake, only, actually edible. The bullace, Prunus domestica subsp. Insatitia, if you want to get all botanical about it, and who doesn't, really, is a bit of a mystery, genetically speaking. Historians still argue whether it's a true native of Britain, or if it was introduced by the Romans. The Romans, bless their imperial hearts, were rather fond of carting plants around. Imagine the Roman soldier, burdened by armor and weapons, meticulously planting a bullace pip on a muddy hillside, dreaming of plum jam. It's a delightful image, isn't it? More likely, though, they were just thinking about conquering stuff. In any case, by the time the Doomsday Book was compiled in 1086, bullaces were already well established across the English countryside. So, Roman import or native darling, it's a long-timer either way. You push aside a particularly prickly branch, wincing slightly as a thorn snags on your sleeve. It's okay, only slightly drawing blood. There. A cluster of bullaces, clinging stubbornly to a gnarled branch. They're small, round, and a deep, almost bruised purple color. Some are still tinged with a powdery bloom, like a delicate dusting of fairy dust. You carefully pluck a few, dropping them into your basket. They feel cool and firm in your hand, promising a tart, tangy treat. Or a culinary disaster. Only time, and a lot of sugar, will tell. Now, here's a quirky tidbit for you. In some parts of the country, bullaces are known as scad plums, a name that sounds suspiciously like something you'd find festering in a petri dish. Nice, huh? Don't let that put you off, though. The name likely comes from the Old English word "sed," meaning shadow, referring to the plum's dark color and preference for growing in shady places. Much more poetic, isn't it? Much less infectious. As you fill your basket, you can't help but feel a connection to the past. For centuries, people have been foraging for bullaces in these same hedgerows, using them to make jams, jellies, cheeses, and even wine. They were a staple food for the rural poor, a valuable source of nutrition in times of hardship. They're still used in some traditional regional dishes, like the Westmoreland damson tart, where bullaces can add a particular zing. It is, basically, the forager's secret weapon. You stumble slightly, watch the uneven ground. Nearly dropping your precious cargo of plums. It occurs to you, perhaps the bullace's tartness is a reflection of its history. A symbol of resilience, a reminder of the hardscrabble lives of those who relied on it for sustenance. Or, maybe they just didn't have enough sugar back then. Regardless, these plums have a unique taste, a depth of flavor that's hard to find in commercially grown fruit. They're like the grumpy old men of the plum world, full of character and a certain bitterness. But underneath that gruff exterior, there's a sweetness waiting to be discovered. You pause to take a sip of your lukewarm tea, the thermos slightly dented from years of faithful service. The wind whispers through the hedgerows, carrying the scent of autumn. You imagine the generations of foragers who have stood in this very spot, their eyes scanning the branches for the telltale sign of the bullace. It's a quiet, peaceful moment, a connection to the land and its history. Also, you really need to pee. So, what can you do with these tiny, tart terrors? Well, as mentioned, jam is the obvious choice. The high pectin content of bullaces means they set easily, producing a firm, jewel-toned preserve. But don't skimp on the sugar. Remember, you're dealing with a fruit that could curdle milk just by looking at it. A little tip, add a splash of lemon juice to brighten the flavor and cut through the sweetness. Unless, of course, you're aiming for maximum face-puckering power. You could also try making bullace cheese, a sort of firm, jellied fruit paste that can be served with cheese and crackers. It's a traditional accompaniment to a ploughman's lunch, a quintessentially British meal that involves cheese, bread, pickles, and usually some kind of meat. Think of it as a fancy fruit leather, but with more gravitas. It's very posh. And then there's bullace wine. It's not as common as plum or damson wine, but it's definitely worth a try if you're feeling adventurous. The tartness of the bullaces makes for a crisp, refreshing wine that's perfect for sipping on a summer evening. Or, a chilly autumn afternoon. Whatever floats your boat. Just be prepared for a wine that packs a serious punch, both in terms of flavor and alcohol content. There's also a really weird historical use that's worth mentioning. During the Middle Ages, it was believed that bullaces could cure, well, just about anything. From the plague to a broken heart. Obviously, that's not true. Unless you're a medieval peasant, in which case, knock yourself out. Please consult an actual doctor, by the way. This is not medical advice. You check your basket, pleased with your haul. It's not a massive harvest, but it's enough to make a few jars of jam and maybe even a small batch of wine. You brush a stray leaf from your hair, feeling the familiar ache in your lower back from bending over for so long. Foraging, good for the soul, bad for the spine. Before you pack up for the day, let's talk a little bit more about the bullace's enigmatic past. Historians still argue whether there are multiple varieties of bullace, or if they're all just variations on a theme. Some claim to have identified distinct types, such as the shepherd's bullace, the Langley bullace, and the white bullace. Others believe that these are simply different forms of the same species, influenced by local growing conditions. It's like trying to decide if your dog is a mutt, or a carefully curated blend of purebreds. One thing is certain, the bullace is a survivor. It can thrive in poor soils and exposed locations, tolerating conditions that would kill off more delicate fruit trees. It's a testament to its hardiness, its ability to adapt and endure. It's the botanical equivalent of your great-grandmother who survived 2 world wars and still makes a mean apple pie. And that, my friend, is the bullace. A wild plum with a mysterious past, a tart flavor, and a surprising amount of culinary potential. So, the next time you're out for a walk in the countryside, keep an eye out for these little gems. You might just discover a new favorite ingredient. Or at least, something that provides a good laugh during the fermentation process. Now, gather up your things. Time to head home and transform these wild plums into something delicious. Or at least, something interesting. Okay, let's talk about a cherry. But not just any cherry. We're diving deep, people, into the world of the Cornelian cherry. Cornus moss, if you want to get all botanical on me. Say it with me, Cornus moss. Feels like you're summoning a minor woodland spirit, doesn't it? So, you're probably picturing a plump, juicy Bing cherry, maybe dripping with sweetness. Forget all that. Because the Cornelian cherry? It's got a surprise for you. A tart, puckering, did I just bite into a lemon, kind of surprise. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad. It's just, unexpected. Especially if you're anticipating that candy-sweet cherry flavor. Imagine ordering a pizza and getting a kale smoothie. That's the level of surprise we're dealing with here. Picture this, you're strolling through a European garden, perhaps in Austria, because that's where these beauties are incredibly popular. You see a small tree absolutely covered in these vibrant, red, oblong fruits. They practically glow in the sunlight. You reach out, pluck one, and pop it into your mouth. Your face scrunches up. Whoa, you think. That's intense. Now, before you write these little guys off completely, let's explore their potential. Because, honestly, who doesn't love a good challenge? Think of it like a really difficult Sudoku puzzle. Annoying at first, but deeply satisfying when you finally crack it. You see, cornelian cherries aren't really meant to be eaten raw. At least, not when they're bright red and fully ripe. That's when the tartness is at its peak. Think of them more like cranberries or sour cherries. They need a little coaxing, a little bit of culinary magic, to truly shine. And that's where preserves come in. Jams, jellies, syrups, compotes, these are where the cornelian cherry truly finds its calling. The tartness mellows out, the sweetness is amplified, and the result is a complex, fruity flavor that's unlike anything else. It's like taking a grumpy old man and giving him a makeover and a winning lottery ticket. Suddenly, he's charming and delightful. You can even make a cornelian cherry liqueur. Imagine that, a vibrant red, slightly tart spirit that you can sip on a cold winter's evening. It's like sunshine in a glass, with a mischievous little twist. And, of course, cornelian cherry juice. Perfect for adding a unique tang to cocktails or even just mixing with sparkling water for a refreshing, slightly sophisticated beverage. Now, let's rewind a bit and talk about the history of this fascinating fruit. The cornelian cherry has been around for a long time. We're talking ancient history here. There's evidence that it was cultivated in ancient Greece and Rome. In fact, the Romans valued the tree itself for its incredibly hard wood. They used it to make spears, javelins, and other weapons. Which, if you think about it, is kind of ironic. This little tart fruit contributing to instruments of war. Historians still argue whether the wood's strength contributed to Roman military successes. Some say it's just romanticization. And speaking of ancient Rome, did you know that Romulus, one of the legendary founders of Rome, supposedly marked out the boundaries of the city with a cornelian cherry spear? He hurled it into the ground, and it miraculously took root. Now that's dedication to city planning. Talk about commitment to landscaping. Imagine trying that with a flimsy IKEA spatula. The cornelian cherry also has a rich tradition in folk medicine. Different cultures have used it to treat everything from digestive issues to fevers to, well, you name it. It's basically the ancient equivalent of that one essential oil your aunt swears cures everything. Though, I'm going to go ahead and gently suggest that you consult a real doctor before using cornelian cherries to treat any serious ailments. Okay. Good. But back to the quirkier side of things. In some parts of Europe, cornelian cherries are considered to be a symbol of virility. I know. Where did that come from? Apparently, the vibrant red color and the fruit's association with spring and new life led to this association. So, if you're looking for a subtle way to, boost your reputation, maybe plant a cornelian cherry tree in your backyard. Just don't blame me if your neighbors start looking at you funny. You know, you could even use them for dyeing fabrics. The bark and roots of the cornelian cherry tree contain natural dyes that can produce shades of yellow, brown, and even red. So, if you're feeling crafty, you could try your hand at creating some naturally dyed textiles. Imagine telling your friends, "Oh, this scarf. I dyed it myself, using cornelian cherry bark." They'll be so impressed. Or confused. Probably both. Alright, let's get back to the taste. Some people describe the flavor of cooked cornelian cherries as a combination of cranberries, sour cherries, and maybe even a hint of plum. It's complex and nuanced. It's got that initial tartness that wakes up your taste buds, followed by a subtle sweetness that lingers on your palate. It's like a flavor adventure, a roller coaster ride for your mouth. You can also pair cornelian cherries with a variety of foods. They go beautifully with cheese, especially creamy cheeses like brie or goat cheese. The tartness of the cherries cuts through the richness of the cheese, creating a perfect balance of flavors. And they're fantastic with roasted meats, adding a touch of brightness and acidity to savory dishes. Think of them as a more sophisticated version of cranberry sauce. And don't forget about desserts. Cornelian cherry tarts, pies, and crumbles are all delicious ways to showcase this unique fruit. The tartness of the cherries balances out the sweetness of the pastry, creating a dessert that's both satisfying and refreshing. So, what's the best way to prepare cornelian cherries? Well, that depends on what you're trying to make. For jams and jellies, you'll want to cook the cherries down with sugar and a little bit of lemon juice until they reach the desired consistency. For sauces and compotes, you can simmer them with spices like cinnamon, cloves, and ginger for extra flavor. One of the things that's great about cornelian cherries is that they're relatively easy to grow. They're hardy, adaptable, and relatively pest-resistant. Which, let's be honest, is a huge plus. Nobody wants to deal with a fussy, high-maintenance fruit tree. They prefer well-drained soil and plenty of sunlight, but they can tolerate a wide range of conditions. The first U.S. president, George Washington, cultivated cornelian cherries at Mount Vernon. Maybe that's why he was so stoic. The fruits taught him patience. Of course, you might have to compete with the birds for the fruit. Those little feathered bandits love cornelian cherries just as much as we do. But hey, at least you'll be providing them with a healthy snack. It's like having a tiny, winged garden crew helping with the harvest. One thing to keep in mind is that cornelian cherries can take a while to mature. It can take several years before a young tree starts producing fruit. So, if you're planting one in your backyard, be prepared to be patient. Think of it as a long-term investment in deliciousness. It's like waiting for that perfect vintage wine to age. The anticipation only makes the final product that much sweeter. Or, in this case, tart sweet. Now, you may be wondering, where can I get my hands on some cornelian cherries? Well, that can be a bit of a challenge. They're not exactly a common sight in most grocery stores. You might have better luck finding them at farmers markets or specialty food stores, especially if you live in an area with a large Eastern European population. You can also try growing your own, if you're feeling ambitious. There are several nurseries that sell cornelian cherry trees online. Just make sure to do your research and choose a reputable source. You don't want to end up with a scrawny little sapling that never produces any fruit. It's like ordering a designer handbag online and getting a plastic grocery sack. So, there you have it. The cornelian cherry, a tart, tangy, and surprisingly versatile fruit that's been around for centuries. It may not be as well known as its sweeter cousins, but it definitely deserves a place in your culinary repertoire. So go ahead, embrace the tartness, and discover the unique flavors of this fascinating fruit. You might just be surprised at how much you enjoy it. And if not, hey, at least you'll have a good story to tell. Alright, hey there, berry enthusiasts. Welcome back. You trudge, slightly damp, along the overgrown path. The late afternoon sun, a mellow apricot hue, filters through the canopy above, dappling the leaf litter at your feet. You're on the hunt today, a treasure hunt of sorts, for something small, something unassuming, something bitter. You're looking for the white bean berry. You feel the cool, earthy scent of decaying leaves rising up to meet you. A robin, puffed up like a tiny, feathered football, watches you from a low branch, its beady eyes following your every move. It probably thinks you're after its lunch. And, well, you are technically after berries, so maybe it has a point. You scan the hedgerows, your fingers brushing against the rough bark of hawthorn and the delicate fronds of ferns. You can almost taste the air, crisp and clean, with just a hint of autumn's melancholy. You're looking for a tree with distinctive, oval leaves, silvery underneath, catching the light like tiny mirrors. And, of course, clusters of bright red berries. Ah, there. Nestled amongst the greenery, a white beam tree stands proud. You approach it cautiously, as if it might bolt. The berries, a vibrant scarlet against the fading green, are clustered together in tempting bunches. You reach out, pluck one, and bring it to your nose. It smells, well, it smells like a berry. Slightly sweet, slightly tart, with a hint of something else, something a little wild. Now for the taste test. You hesitate. You've read about these berries. You know they aren't exactly known for their deliciousness. But, you're a brave explorer, a culinary adventurer. You pop the berry into your mouth. The initial flavor is surprisingly pleasant. A burst of sweetness, a hint of apple, a touch of cranberry. But then, the bitterness hits. It's not an unpleasant bitterness, more like a sharp, astringent note that lingers on the tongue. Like you've just licked a very determined, very slightly fermented, rosehip. Okay, maybe you wouldn't want to eat a whole bowlful. But, you can see the potential. With a little bit of culinary wizardry, these berries could be something special. You gather a handful, carefully placing them in your foraging basket. You know, people weren't always so wary of eating things straight from the hedgerow. In fact, for centuries, wild foods were a vital part of the human diet. During World War II, for example, when food rationing was in full swing, people in Britain were encouraged to forage for wild fruits and vegetables to supplement their meager rations. Rosehip syrup, made from the hips of wild roses, became a popular source of vitamin C. Dandelion coffee was well, let's just say it was something. On a slightly more unique note, did you know that some people believe that eating certain wild plants can grant you special powers? Like, if you eat enough wild garlic, you might be able to ward off vampires. Or, if you consume a significant quantity of nettles, you'll suddenly understand what your cat is thinking. Highly unlikely, but entertaining to consider. Historians still argue whether the diet of medieval peasants was largely vegetarian by choice, or by necessity due to the high cost of meat. But whatever the reason, wild plants were undoubtedly a significant part of their daily sustenance. You continue your walk, the basket of white bean berries swinging gently at your side. You begin to envision all the possibilities. Jams, jellies, sauces, even maybe a white bean berry crumble. The possibilities, while perhaps not endless, are certainly existent. You imagine yourself in a cozy kitchen, the scent of simmering berries filling the air. You carefully prepare the fruit, removing the stems and any stray leaves. You add sugar, lemon juice, and maybe a touch of cinnamon. The berries simmer away, slowly transforming into a thick, ruby-red concoction. You'll probably need to strain the mixture through a cheesecloth to remove any remaining bitterness. Nobody wants a jam that makes their face pucker up like a prune. Although, a slightly bitter jam could be interesting. A grown-up jam. A jam for sophisticated palates. Or, maybe you're just trying to convince yourself that the bitterness isn't that bad. You might even experiment with adding other fruits to the mix. Apples, pears, or even a handful of blackberries. The white bean berries would provide a unique, tart counterpoint to the sweetness of the other fruits. The possibilities, you see, are present star. But where did this somewhat overlooked berry come from, anyway? Well, the white bean tree, Sorbus aurea, is native to Europe and parts of Asia. It's a member of the rose family, which, you know, makes it sound a little bit more glamorous than it perhaps is. And it's been around for a long time. Fossil evidence suggests that white bean trees were growing in Europe during the Ice Age. Talk about a survivor. The tree itself is quite beautiful, with its silvery leaves and clusters of white flowers in the spring. It's a popular ornamental tree in parks and gardens. It's also quite hardy, able to tolerate a wide range of soil conditions and weather conditions. Which, let's be honest, is a pretty impressive feat. Interestingly, white bean trees have been used for medicinal purposes for centuries. The bark and leaves have been used to treat a variety of ailments, including diarrhea, sore throats, and even hemorrhoids. You know, the glamorous stuff. Although, it's probably best to stick to modern medicine for that particular affliction. Just a thought. And here's a quirky tidbit for you: in some parts of Europe, white beam wood was traditionally used to make walking sticks and tool handles. The wood is strong and durable, and it was believed to have magical properties. People believed that carrying a walking stick made of white beam wood could protect you from evil spirits. Which, you know, can't hurt. Especially if you're planning on spending a lot of time in dark forests. Historians still argue whether the Druids truly held the white beam tree sacred, or if the connection is a later romantic interpretation of Celtic traditions. Either way, the tree has clearly held a place of respect and fascination for centuries. The sun dips further below the horizon, casting long shadows across the path. The air grows cooler, and the birds begin to sing their evening chorus. You decide it's time to head back. You carefully navigate your way through the trees, your basket of white beam berries feeling heavier with each step. You arrive back at your starting point, your legs slightly tired, but your spirit refreshed. You look at the berries in your basket, their bright red color a stark contrast to the muted tones of the surrounding landscape. You think about all the things you can do with these berries. The jams, the jellies, the sauces. The possibilities are, well, they're simmering. Maybe you'll even try making a white beam berry liqueur. Now that sounds interesting. A slightly bitter, slightly sweet, slightly intoxicating concoction. Perfect for sipping on a cold winter evening. You close your eyes and imagine yourself sitting by a crackling fire, a glass of white beam berry liqueur in your hand. The wind howls outside, but you're warm and cozy inside. The liqueur warms you from the inside out, and you feel a sense of contentment wash over you. You smile. The white beam berry. A bitter berry with a rosy future. You can almost taste it. And you know, with a little bit of effort, you can turn that bitter little berry into something truly special. Something delicious. Something magical. Okay, maybe not magical. But certainly, palatable. So, there you have it. The white beam berry. Don't underestimate the potential of something small, something unassuming, something slightly bitter. Alright, settle in, settle in. Let's talk about haws. Hawthorn berries. Those tiny, bright red jewels that pop up in hedgerows, usually right about now, as the leaves start to turn that glorious golden brown. You trudge through the crisp autumn air, boots crunching on fallen leaves, that familiar earthy smell filling your nose. The sun, low in the sky, casts long shadows, and you spot it, a hawthorn bush, laden with berries. Now, you might just think, oh, pretty berries. And keep walking. But, my friend, you'd be missing out. These little red gems are so much more than just aesthetically pleasing. They have a long and fascinating history, steeped in folklore, medicine, and, yes, even a little bit of magic. You reach out and pluck a berry. It's firm, a little glossy, and feels surprisingly substantial for its size. You pop it in your mouth. The taste? Well, let's just say it's an acquired taste. A little tart, a little sweet, a little mealy. Not exactly a flavor explosion, is it? More like a polite suggestion of flavor. You wouldn't exactly build a smoothie bar around it, but hey, the benefits might outweigh the taste bud disappointment. See, hawthorn berries, and the plant itself, Crataegus monogyna if you're feeling fancy, have been used for centuries, primarily for their purported heart health benefits. You picture some medieval apothecary, grinding these little berries into a potion, chanting incantations, and promising eternal youth. Though, the incantations part is probably just the apothecary trying to justify the price he's about to charge. The historical fact is this: the medicinal use of hawthorn goes way back. Dioscorides, that ancient Greek physician and botanist, the guy who basically wrote the book on herbal medicine back in the 1st century AD, mentioned hawthorn. Not in great detail, mind you, but he acknowledged its potential properties. Then, in the Middle Ages, its popularity really started to bloom. People used it for everything from dropsy to, you guessed it, heart problems. Speaking of historical uses, here's a quirky tidbit for you. In some Celtic traditions, hawthorn trees were considered sacred places inhabited by fairies. Cutting one down was supposed to bring terrible luck, and you definitely didn't want to build your house too close to one. Imagine explaining that to your contractor. Yeah, I know the blueprints call for the master bedroom to go right there, but there's a fairy tree, and I don't want to, anger the wee folk. Good luck getting your security deposit back. Now, while the fairy lore is interesting, let's get back to the heart. The modern interest in hawthorn stems from its potential to improve cardiovascular function. There are various studies suggesting that hawthorn can help lower blood pressure, improve blood flow, and even strengthen the heart muscle. The mechanisms behind these effects are thought to be related to the plant's high concentration of flavonoids and other antioxidants, which help protect against cellular damage and inflammation. You think, okay, so maybe these berries aren't just glorified bird food after all. But here's where things get a little murky, a little less settle in for a chill vibe, and more, interesting. While many studies show positive results, some have been inconclusive. Some researchers believe the quality and preparation of hawthorn extracts can significantly impact their effectiveness. Others point out that many of the studies have been small or poorly designed. Historians still argue whether the traditional uses of hawthorn were truly effective, or simply attributed to a placebo effect or other confounding factors. You nibble on another hawthorn berry, considering all this. It's a bit like the whole, coffee is good for you, coffee is bad for you, debate. One week, you're reading headlines about how coffee prevents all diseases known to humankind, the next, it's linked to premature aging and existential dread. The world of nutrition is a chaotic place, isn't it? Despite the ongoing debate, many people still swear by hawthorn, using it as a complementary therapy for various heart conditions. Of course, it's always crucial to talk to your doctor before adding any new supplement or herbal remedy to your routine. They can help you determine if it's right for you and whether it might interact with any medications you're already taking. Don't just blindly trust a sleepy YouTube host, folks. That's just reckless. And speaking of preparations, you don't necessarily have to eat the berries raw. You can make hawthorn tea, jam, jelly, or even wine. The possibilities are endless. Or, well, maybe not endless. But there are definitely more options than just popping them straight off the bush. Personally, I prefer the tea. It's a soothing and comforting way to enjoy the benefits of hawthorn, especially on a chilly autumn evening. You imagine yourself curled up by the fire, sipping a steaming cup of hawthorn tea, feeling your heart sing a little song of gratitude. However, proceed with caution when foraging. You need to be absolutely certain that you've identified the plant correctly. There are some berries out there that look similar to hawthorn, but are definitely not good for you. In fact, some can be downright poisonous. So, if you're not 100% sure, it's always best to err on the side of caution and leave it alone. Maybe stick to buying your hawthorn products from a reputable source. Your stomach will thank you. And while you're out foraging, keep an eye out for other signs of autumn. The changing leaves, the migrating birds, the squirrels frantically burying nuts for the winter. It's a beautiful and magical time of year, isn't it? It's as if nature is putting on one last spectacular show before settling in for a long winter's nap. Now, let's talk about a truly quirky fact. In some parts of Europe, hawthorn branches were traditionally used as May bushes. Young people would decorate them with ribbons and flowers and set them up outside their sweethearts' homes on May Day. It was a way of showing affection and, let's be honest, a little bit of showing off. Look at me, I'm so in love that I spent hours decorating this bush for you. Pretty sure modern relationships involve less shrubbery and more awkward texting. Beyond the heart and the romance, hawthorn also has other potential benefits. Some studies suggest it may have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, which could help protect against various chronic diseases. It's also been traditionally used to aid digestion and relieve anxiety. It's like a natural multivitamin, if multivitamins tasted vaguely of dirt. You consider all of this as you look back at the hawthorn bush, now slightly depleted of its berries. It stands there, a silent sentinel in the hedgerow, offering its gifts to those who know to look. It's a reminder that nature provides us with so much, if only we take the time to notice and appreciate it. But again, a word to the wise. While hawthorn is generally considered safe, some people may experience mild side effects, such as nausea, dizziness, or digestive upset. And, as I mentioned before, it can interact with certain medications, particularly those for heart conditions. So, always talk to your doctor before using hawthorn, especially if you have any underlying health issues. The last thing you want is to trade one heart problem for another, or to end up in the emergency room because you decided to self-medicate based on the advice of some random internet person. I mean, come on, use your head. Now, for a little historical tidbit. During World War II, when medicines were scarce, people in Britain turned to foraging for medicinal plants like hawthorn. It was a way to supplement their limited access to healthcare and to take control of their own well-being. It's a testament to the resilience and resourcefulness of people in times of crisis. You have to admire that spirit, that ability to find solutions and make do with what you have. Historians still argue whether the increased reliance on herbal remedies during wartime actually had a significant impact on public health, or if it was more of a symbolic act of defiance and self-reliance. But either way, it highlights the enduring connection between humans and the natural world, and our ability to find comfort and healing in the plants around us. You take one last look at the hawthorn bush. The sun is starting to set, casting a warm glow over the landscape. It's time to head home, your pockets full of foraged berries and your mind full of thoughts about heart health, fairy lore, and the enduring power of nature. You trudge back along the path, the crunch of leaves underfoot a comforting rhythm. And as you reach your doorstep, you can't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the simple things in life, a beautiful sunset, a handful of hawthorn berries, and the promise of a cozy evening ahead. But mostly gratitude that this script is nearly over. Good night. Okay, settle in, friend. Let's talk rose hips. Imagine you're hiking. It's late autumn. The air's crisp, carries that particular earthy scent that screams sweater weather. You trudge along a path, leaves crunching underfoot like nature's Rice Krispies. Snap, crackle, pop, only instead of milk, you've got a vague sense of existential dread about the impending winter. Lovely. Then, the a.m. A splash of vibrant color cuts through the monochrome landscape. Wild rose bushes, thorny and tenacious, their blooms long gone, replaced by these small, bright red, orange, or even dark purple fruits, rose hips. Those little guys? They're vitamin C bombs, just waiting to be discovered. They're nature's way of saying, hey, winter's coming, but don't worry, I got you. You reach out and pluck one. It's firm to the touch, maybe a little sticky. Don't bite into it just yet. Trust me. We'll get to the eating part later, the part where you decide if the effort of processing them is worth the, unique flavor. Some folks describe it as sweet and tangy, others as, well, let's just say, acquired. Now, let's zoom out a bit. Roses. They're ancient. We're talking seriously ancient. Fossil evidence suggests they've been around for at least 35 million years. Think about that. Dinosaurs probably sniffed at their ancestors. It's humbling, isn't it? All that history, all those petals, and we're here talking about their butts. Because that's essentially what a rose hip is, the fruit left behind after the flower's done its thing. Roses have been symbols of love, war, and everything in between. Cleopatra, history tells us, famously carpeted her floors with rose petals to impress Mark Antony. Talk about a romantic gesture, and a terrible cleaning job. I mean, imagine the sticky residue. No wonder the Roman Empire eventually crumbled. Rose petal buildup. But here's a quirkier historical tidbit for you. In some cultures, roses were considered to have magical properties. People believed they could ward off evil spirits or even predict the future. I can just see someone now, peering intently at a rose hip, muttering, "Will I win the lottery?" Will I find love? Will I finally understand cryptocurrency? The rose hip remains silent. Probably because it's a fruit, and fruits generally aren't known for their fortune-telling abilities. And, of course, there's the War of the Roses, the 15th century English Civil War between the House of Lancaster, represented by the red rose, and the House of York, represented by the white rose. It was a bloody, decades-long conflict, all symbolized by pretty flowers. Sort of like fighting over the last rose-flavored gummy bear, but with more bloodshed and fewer cavities. Historians still argue whether the War of the Roses was truly about noble principles or just a really intense family feud fueled by a bad inheritance. Whatever the case, at least it gave Shakespeare some good material. Back to the hips. The high vitamin C content of rose hips is what makes them so interesting. We're talking seriously high. Sometimes even more than citrus fruits. Which is why, during World War II, when citrus imports were disrupted in Britain, the government encouraged people to collect rose hips to make syrup for children. It was a national effort, a way to keep everyone healthy during tough times. Can you imagine? Entire families, armed with gloves and baskets, scouring the countryside for rose hips, all in the name of public health. Talk about a wholesome image. There's a fringe theory that claims rose hips were a closely guarded secret of ancient warriors, used to boost their immune systems and give them an edge in battle. Imagine a Viking warrior, pausing mid-raid to munch on a handful of rose hips. It kind of ruins the image of the fearsome barbarian, doesn't it? Now, about that taste. As I mentioned, it's unique. Some say it's similar to cranberries, others detect a hint of apple or even tomato. But the real challenge is dealing with the tiny hairs inside the hips. They're irritating, like microscopic fiberglass, and if you ingest them, well, let's just say your digestive system won't be happy. This is why you have to be careful when preparing them. Traditionally, you slice them open, scoop out the seeds and hairs, a tedious task, to be sure, and then either dry them for tea, make them into jam, or process them into a syrup. People have been using rose hips for centuries in traditional medicine. They're said to have anti-inflammatory properties, and some studies suggest they can help with joint pain and even skin conditions. And speaking of skin, rosehip seed oil has become a popular ingredient in skincare products. It's rich in antioxidants and essential fatty acids, which are supposed to help reduce wrinkles and improve skin tone. So, basically, you can slather your face in rose hip goodness and pretend you're Cleopatra, only without the rose petal-covered floors. But, a cautionary tale, a fringe theory exists that the Brothers Grimm were actually documenting ancient magical remedies, and that the tale of Sleeping Beauty refers to a rose hip elixir with the power to induce prolonged slumber, leading to a prince's kiss to break the spell. Okay, that might be too fringe. From a culinary perspective, rose hips are surprisingly versatile. You can make tea, jam, jelly, syrup, soup, even wine. Rose hip soup is a Scandinavian delicacy, often served during the winter months. It's sweet, tangy, and surprisingly hearty. And rose hip jam is a delicious spread for toast or scones. You can even add it to yogurt or oatmeal for a little extra flavor and a vitamin C boost. Now, if you're feeling adventurous, you can even try making rose hip ketchup. Yes, you heard me right. Rose hip ketchup. It's a thing. I haven't tried it myself, but I imagine it's like regular ketchup, only with a slightly floral, slightly tangy flavor. Perfect for dipping your fries, or maybe drizzling on a rose-flavored hot dog. Don't look at me like that. Historians still argue whether the perceived health benefits of rose hips are primarily due to the vitamin C content or the presence of other beneficial compounds. There are flavonoids, carotenoids, and other antioxidants in there, too, which may all contribute to their overall health-promoting effects. It's a complex cocktail of goodness, all wrapped up in a little red package. But back to preparing them. It's crucial to remove those irritating hairs. Some people use a special rose hip scraper, while others simply use a spoon. Whatever method you choose, be prepared for a sticky, messy process. And be sure to wear gloves, unless you want your hands to turn a lovely shade of orange. It's not a bad look, really. A sort of perpetual autumn tan. Here's a fun fact: in some parts of the world, rose hips are used to make a traditional alcoholic beverage called naipansapa. It's a type of fruit wine, typically made with sugar, spices, and of course, rose hips. It's said to be quite potent. So, if you're looking for a way to warm up on a cold winter evening, naipansapa might be just the thing. Just be sure to drink responsibly. You don't want to end up carpeted in rose petals and making questionable decisions. The process is long, though. It can take hours to process a large batch of rose hips. But the end result is worth it, especially if you're making something truly delicious, like rose hip jam or syrup. And if you're feeling particularly ambitious, you can even try making your own rose hip vinegar. It's a unique and flavorful addition to salad dressings or marinades. However, a theory whispers that some ancient alchemists believed that fermenting rose hips under a full moon would unlock their true magical potential, granting the drinker enhanced psychic abilities. Don't try this at home, kids. Just stick to making jam. So, next time you're out hiking and you see those vibrant little fruits clinging to the rose bushes, remember their power. They're more than just pretty decorations. They're a source of vitamin C, a culinary ingredient, and a reminder of the resilience of nature. And maybe, just maybe, they hold a little bit of magic, too. But mostly, they're just really annoying to prepare. Okay, my friend, let's wind this down. Take a deep breath. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest. That's it. Let's soften the edges of the day. The images of thorny bushes and sticky rose hips begin to fade. The crunch of leaves underfoot quiets down, replaced by the soft hum of whatever it is that hums in your space. The air grows still. Think of sunlight filtering through rose-tinted glass. The warmth on your skin, the gentle perfume of the flowers. The taste of sweet rose hip jam, melting on your tongue. A sense of calm washes over you. The stories of Vikings, of Cleopatra, of wartime shortages, they drift away like fallen petals on a gentle breeze. The quirky theories, the historical debates, the sheer tedium of de-seeding a mountain of rose hips, all forgotten. Just the warmth, the stillness, the soft promise of rest. Let your mind drift. Let your body relax. Let the world outside fade away, until all that's left is peace. Sleep well, my friend. Sweet dreams.